Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of 3 Point Weekly. This week, we are going to be discussing at least the projected playoffs teams' X factors, as well as giving some of our all-time starting fives for a few franchises across the league. And time permitting, we will have some more trivia again to end the show. But before we get any further, as you guys do tune in, be sure to hit that like button down below. Be sure to subscribe. And as we do discuss these X factors, be sure to let us know who your X factors may be for these teams that are heading for the postseason, assuming they don't have a collapse. And that's why we've decided to do things the way we're at. The top 10 seeds in each conference look about as confident as they've been at this point in the year over the last few years. Of course, there's still some potential for fluctuation, but out east, the 11 and 12 seeds are the Brooklyn Nets, who've been pretty poor as of late, and the Raptors, who are obviously, since the trade deadline, in tank mode. Out west, the Rockets have not been anywhere near as good over the last few weeks. Utah had that bit of a run, but they've since slipped. The top 10 seeds look pretty safe right now, barring collapse. It's the NBA. Who knows what will happen? But we're going to talk about those top 20 teams today and discuss some of those X factors, assuming they do hold on to that playoff spot. We do have the bit of the Eastern Conference bias out here with the Raptors and Celtics fans representing the pod. So we're going to start out west today. We'll start from what is the bottom at the start of recording here today, or near the bottom in the Dallas Mavericks down towards that play-in tournament. We'll get your thoughts first, Gabe. They're beating our Toronto Raptors right now, but what might be that X factor for the Mavericks heading into the postseason?
So for me, this was one of the more difficult decisions out of all the teams because I think there was a couple options here that you could go with. The one that I decided to go with was Derek Lively here. And it was mostly for that defensive aspect. I think being a guy who's a rookie with so much responsibility on him, holding down that, just being the defensive anchor for that squad, that's going to be a really big responsibility come playoff time. And especially with some of the bigs out west, like if they get into a situation where they're in a first round matchup with, say, like Denver, that's a lot of pressure to put on a guy who's a rookie. Now, he does have Maxi Kleber back to full strength, so that might help him a little bit on the back line. I know they got Daniel Gafford, but he doesn't seem to be playing that many minutes as of now, so I don't know if he'll be in the playoff rotation. But overall, we know the main responsibility is going to be on him, and if he's able to excel in that role, it's going to make their chances a whole lot better because we saw when this team went to the conference finals a couple years ago, it was on the back of a good defense. And as good as the offense can be with Luka and Kyrie leading the show, you need that other end if you want to go far.
To not counter it, but to kind of back your point a little bit, I think Gafford will see a decent amount of time in the postseason, but having Lively there, and he has to still be able to play at like a very good level. Like he can't get to the playoffs, like you said, and fold into that pressure. He still has to be very productive because you just look at this Dallas team, like you said, even in their conference finals run, that was not like a set like big man spot. Like Maxey came in, played a lot. Dwight Powell was still playing like big minutes for them. Like they needed, a rotation of guys to kind of step up. So they don't have that definitive guy, but I think you could almost say like the center spot as a whole is kind of like their X factor. I think that would have been like a even better way to say it for real because it's really a unit for them. It's like a center by committee type thing where a lot of guys, maybe different matchups will suit them better. Like Cleveland might have a series, Gafford might have a series, Lively could have a series. That's just kind of the luxury that they have, but also something that they got to figure out, like you said.
Yeah, that's about the direction I went with them too. Health in there as well is going to be important. Obviously, Lively's missed time. No, it's not a lower body injury. It's not something I expect to be recurring, but he's back now and just recovering from that, playing with the mask tonight. Kleba just needs to continue to be able to stay healthy, which has been a concern over the last couple of years. But I'm right there with you guys. It's how do they match up? What lineups do they like? What do they like against certain teams and certain rotations? The production from that group is going to be important. You can even include PJ Washington in that as well. Just that collection of fours and fives. How do they match up? What rotations do they use? And how productive are they going to be? I think that's the biggest swing factor for them. We know what we're getting specifically from their offense, especially from the guard spot. But what can those bigs bring? How good can their rebounding be? Will the lack of size be an issue? And can they be good enough defensively? And that's going to be spearheaded by those guys. That's the biggest swing for me for the Mavs.
Yeah, PJ was actually the guy I had written down, but like you said, he kind of fits into that too because there's times he's going to be like small ball five for them. So it's really like that front court. You could even throw like guys like Derrick Jones Jr. How we talked about him last week. He has to be big for them. Really, it's almost like everybody outside of Kyrie and Luka because we know for the most part those two are going to do their thing in the playoffs. They're some pretty high level playoff performers themselves. It's really everything else. Like they have so many different factors that if everything clicks, they can make a deep run. But if one of those units is just lacking a little bit, they could be a first round exit. That's just why there's so much of a disparity between this team when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, once you get to that time of year and that rotation shrinks, Luka and Kyrie are going to be on the floor for like 40 minutes probably. So just at that point, I mean, the backcourt's going to be looking solid because even if the other 8 minutes aren't looking great, they'll probably stagger them enough to where at least one of them is going to be out there all the time. So you got to assume that's going to be in a good place. So yeah, I think that kind of like you guys are saying, that just front court by committee, that's going to be huge for them. Where do we want to go next, though? I know right now Mavs are at 8.
Yeah, let's stay in the
Around
West
there.
play-in with another 2-star led team. Let's stay with the Lakers. We'll stay down at the bottom of the West, and another team
Let's
that's
go.
again they got LeBron and AD, but who else is showing up?
Yeah, they got there's so many different names you could say because playoffs last year, like in a couple of those rounds, like Braun wasn't even like second best player on the floor sometimes, like as far as like offensively speaking goes. So I'm gonna go with D'Angelo Russell because I feel like the best version I've seen of this Laker team this season is when D'Lo's been like an aggressive offensive player, knocking down 3-point shots at a high level, hitting clutch jump shots. That's the best version of the Lakers that I've seen this season. And when we get to the playoffs, we know AD is going to do his thing on both ends of the floor. We presume a healthy LeBron. Hopefully that ankle is fine. We presume him being healthy. He's still going to do what he does in the postseason. Still one of the better postseason players when he's fully healthy. But they're going to need somebody else always. And I look at that guard spot, and I would just want to see D'Angelo Russell be that guy because when he's on this Laker team, they're still a very tough team to beat because of the defensive AD, LeBron manipulating the game offensively, and then if you have D'Lo cooking like how he has been in stretches this season, they can go out there, to handle business in the play-in, and whether they're 7, 8 seed, they would be a tough out in that first round for whichever young team they play up at top. If it's OKC, if it's Minnesota, that's going to be a tough series for them if D'Lo's cooking like how he has in stretches this season. So I look at him, I'm like, if he's on his stuff, they're going to be a tough team to beat. If not, then you'll just see the kind of flawedness in this Laker offense, and they could just easily revert back to being that, bottom tier offense that we've seen in stretches this season.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned how many different guys it could possibly be because I put D'Angelo Russell as well. But, I mean, we know last year, a lot of the reason they made it as far as they did was because guys like Rui stepped up, guys like Reeves stepped up. It was a lot of those just supporting pieces. But I think out of those, D'Angelo Russell does have the highest ceiling of what he can provide. So I'm pretty much sort of with you on what everything you said. Like, if he's in a position where he can be knocking down his shots and really just playing to his max offensive potential, that's going to bring this team a long way in being able to make this uphill battle again, coming out of the play-in and trying to make it back to where they were last year.
Yeah, I'm there with you guys. From a player perspective, those are the obvious choices. D'Lo's obviously got the biggest swing factor, and we know what Reeves and Rui were as X factors for them last postseason. Another thing to consider, rotations. Weird thing to put as an X factor, but we know how Lakers fans have complained about Darvin Ham rotations. And as soon as they went back to their starting lineup last year that gave them success, they started winning some basketball games at a bit of a higher rate than they had for the majority of the season. Shocking thing, you'd have to go back to what worked for you going into the postseason last year, but nonetheless, that's seemingly how it's worked over there this year. So that'll be something to keep an eye on as well, outside of the Rui, D'Angelo Russell, and Austin Reeves. Those are the three biggest players to look at, but rotations have been a bit of a criticism at time over in LA, so that'll be another thing to keep an eye on.
I thought Laker fans were like overreacting until I really like started paying more attention to it. I'm like, nah, like Darvin be tripping sometimes. So that's a hell of a point. And it's funny because there's some teams like I didn't even write down a players, more of like concepts. Like
Yeah.
like I can't really pinpoint who this relies on, but it's just this as a whole that this is going to determine how well you guys play in the postseason. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, I try to get a player for everybody, but there's definitely some teams, and I'm sure some we'll talk about soon, where it definitely is more of just an overarching team problem.
Yeah.
Or team, X factor, I guess, as we're saying.
Do you guys want to stay in the play-in, or do you want to just jump around? Because we can talk
anywhere.
Okay. We talked about this before. Let's go all the way up to the 1 seed. The Minnesota Timberwolves, it's that late game offense still. Like, for me, that's 100%. The one thing. Whether that falls on Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, is it a Chris Finch problem? Whoever it falls on, that's the basis to me of that's what the X factor is for this team. If they can thrive in late game situations, their defense is so elite that they will be able to beat, I would say, any team out west, if they can thrive in those late game situations. But when you look at the pecking order in the West, and you just think about these teams in those critical moments in series where it's like a 2-2 series, a close game 5, I trust like maybe 3 or 4 more teams ahead of them in those situations. Now they have the talent to like maybe trump some of those teams that I'm thinking about in those situations. But if it gets to that point, man, I just trust other teams, more than I do with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And we talked about this a couple months ago, and it's still a problem. And that's not promising, because when you get to this point in the season, you want to see those problems kind of fading away a little bit. And with the Timberwolves, I just feel like it's the same as it was a couple months ago and how it's been all season.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's really going to be their biggest thing. I did write down a name for them as well, just to kind of give a side point. I went with Karl Anthony Towns, and I usually don't like going with all-star level players for this kind of thing, because usually think an X factor is like a guy who's probably a little bit more of a role player, maybe a high value starter, who like they're sort of can be up and down. And Cat is definitely a star that made the All-Star game this year. But we know his playoff track record to be very poor. And that's just not going to be able to continue being a thing if they want to go far in this postseason. You could also kind of say the same for Rudy, with those Jazz defenses being exposed, them not being too great last year. And it's like we still haven't really seen a Rudy defense be elite in a playoff setting. But I trust a lot more in that just because of the other defensive pieces around him in this scenario. So I went with Cat because we just got to see some sort of good performance. And his is more solely based on him, whereas something like the Gobert playoff failures in the past can be attributed to other sources.
Yeah, Cat's definitely a valid shout here. I had him in discussions too, because like you say, it's just been so inconsistent from him in the playoffs that he is, by definition, that X Factor prototype guy where you might get a 30 piece from him, but you also might get 11 points whilst he plays 20 minutes because he was in foul trouble. So you can get both sides from him. And we talk about late game offense, and offense as a whole has just been an issue at times. I mean, again, it's only one game, but they put up 50 points in the first half tonight at home against Memphis. Like
It's bad.
If you're a 1 seed that truly wants to show that you're a contender, those performances just don't happen. Not to mention the fact they're also getting out-rebounded by 22 with a team with Rudy and Cat. Again, it's only one game, but they're just things that shouldn't be happening if you're trying to prove that you're that tier of a team at home against a very bad team who's got a lot of injuries. We know what the situation is in Memphis this year. It's just not a good showing. So those are the types of things that just start to poke holes at where they're at and start to think, okay, how is the offense, especially how is the late game offense? And like you say, Gabe, the Cat concerns, they're legitimate concerns for where they're at so far right now. So there's definitely a few things that could swing their factors. Most of it rely on the offensive end.
Look, I'm glad you said the offense, because I did this mini case study for my TikTok, and basically they missed the threshold of being a championship team, because to be a championship team, or even just to make the finals, there's only been 2 teams that had an offensive rating worse than 12. And it was the Heat last year, which we just know they had just the oddest of shooting years. Their offense was just really bad last year. And then the Golden State Warriors in 2022. And they had a year where Steph Curry missed like 30 games. Klay Thompson was coming back from his injuries. Draymond missed a decent stretch of basketball. So they were down their 3 best players for like critical stretches in the season. So I listed those 2 teams as outliers. Outside of that, the worst team is the bubble Lakers, and they were 12th ranked offensively, which is still good. Minnesota, they just missed that. I think they're 17th right now, or last time I checked, they were around 17. So that's a below average offense. And it's confusing how this offense is so poor because of the quality of talent they still have, man. Like, you just look on paper, you would think it'd be good. You look at Chris Finch as a above average head coach, you would just think like this offense would be better. And it's just not. And it hasn't improved all year. You could argue it might have even gotten worse as the season's gone on, honestly. Like, it's a valid concern, and it's just a weird concern to have in today's NBA. Like, usually when we talk about teams, it's like, well, they're high-powered offense, but the defense is just they're playing very like late 2000s basketball where you could be a 15th ranked offense but have the number 1 defensive rating and make it to the NBA Finals. But today's NBA, like, you kind of have to have a very solid balance of both, and they don't have that.
They gotta hope they get an ant explosion. I do find it really interesting though, saying like you talking about some of the worst offenses to make championship pushes. Like, all those that you mentioned are in like the last 5 years or so. So that might make it look a little bit in their favor, because I know you said those are more outliers, but for it to be such a thing with like the past few years, I mean, that's interesting to look at. But I think one of their best bets will be if we've seen Ant as a playoff elevator, and especially talking about a late game situation. I hate to be corny about it, but it's like, bro, you get to that clutch time, you need a shot down the stretch, and it's like, Ant might be that guy in the postseason. So that could really lean in their favor. But I think that's a hard thing to really put quality analysis on. That's more just vibes than anything.
Yeah, ball watching for real. But Ant's great, and he's been great in his postseason appearances. But you look at the guys that they could end up facing, and you could say the same thing about they play Dallas. They have Luka. They match up with the Clippers. They have Kawhi Leonard. They match up against Denver. They got Jokic. They got Jamal Murray. Those guys are killers in late game situations. So it's like, you can say that about a lot of teams out west too. So it's just like, and those teams have better just offenses in general than what this Minnesota team. Minnesota is one of the only team out west that we look at as a good team that is like below the top 12. Like, everybody else, I think like the Pelicans are like around like 14th or something like that, but everybody else is in the top 12 that we look at to be like, contending type teams outside of like the Lakers, because they've been up and down bad all season. But like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like OKC, Denver, the Clippers, those teams are all top 12. Minnesota's like the outlier. Phoenix, they're top 12. Minnesota's just the outlier there.
Is Phoenix a contender? That's a fun discussion for another time. That's for sure.
Yeah, we can talk about them when we get there.
Definitely an interesting one. It's tough with, just to elaborate a bit more on the Ant point, even like you say, Gabe, great in the postseason so far. You would think that you would believe on him late game in the clutch if needed. How many games are they going to get away with that, though, if the rest of the guys don't show up on the offense? Like, they might get a game out of that. And then whoever is coaching on the opposing side is just like, okay, literally let anyone else beat us. And they're just going to send house at Ant. That's the concern with where they're at right now is, A, what is Ant's decision making out of that scenario, whether it's a blitz, whether it's a double, however they deal with it. How does he move out of that? How is he playmaking out of that? And what does the rest of the offense do once they get the ball in those scenarios? That's the biggest thing, because I think, like you say, I trust Ant to make those shots, but how often are teams actually going to allow him the opportunity to do that late in games? Because if they start cooking him once or twice, any coach who's worthy of making a run and actually beating this team, which is probably most coaches in this conference right now, they're just not going to let that continue to happen.
Yep.
Yeah, him doing it 16 times, that's a hard bet to make, because that's how many it takes to get a ring.
Especially against, like Dev mentioned a great point, like teams we've seen this season when they blitz Ant like late in games, he doesn't really know how to handle those situations. Kind of reminds me of remember when Dallas beat the brakes off of Phoenix in that game 7? They just started blitzing the hell out of Book. And at that time, I don't think Book really like understood how to really attack that. And, he's probably grown since then, but at that time he was like, they just took him completely out the game. And that's a situation that could happen with Anthony Edwards too, because I will live with Cat making decisions out of the short roll. He's more than a above average playmaker for a center, but I will live with him making decisions out of the short roll, whether it's trying to throw a lob to Rudy or if McDaniel's in the corner. Like, we will live with that every single day of the week.
Like, primary defenders on him, they could get insane too. Look at, like, if they get out of the first round, the rest of the top 5, you're talking about he's either getting guarded by Herb Jones, the combo of probably like Kawhi Leonard, but I'm sure they probably share responsibilities, Aaron Gordon and like Lou Dort,
KCP too.
He gonna be in hell.
That's why he's supposed to be a superstar though. At the same time,
I mean, yeah, if you're a superstar, you score on those guys.
That's the thing. It don't get easier once we get to the playoffs. So they're struggling with late game offenses against like the Hornets. Like, it don't get easier. It's only going to get tougher once we get to the postseason, when possessions are shorter, more bodies are going to be in the way, so you can't get to your spots as easy. Like, it's not going to get easier. So, him and the team overall offensively, they're going to have to grow up fast if they want to try and make this finals run.
I kind of want
to see how they transition. Go ahead, Gabe.
I was going to say, as we're towards the top, I kind of want to talk about Denver, because my point here is pretty short, pretty sweet. I put 2 players, but mainly one. Mainly Christian Brown, but sort of Peyton Watson in there as well, in the sense that last year their bench play was great in the playoffs. They only had like an 8-man rotation, but that unit off the bench of Christian Brown, Bruce Brown, and Jeff Green, they were cooking. That was one of the like biggest kind of unsung heroes of that playoff run. They definitely got their praise, but compared to like the performances of Jokic, compared to the performance of Jamal Murray, I think it goes a little bit unsaid just how valuable that bench was. People sort of talked about it during free agency when some of those guys left, but this season, even in the past couple games, they really don't go that deep into their rotation right now. And so it's going to be a lot of Christian Brown and then Peyton Watson, who sort of stepped up into being their second most impactful bench player. You could throw Zeke Naji in there as well. But for the most part, I guess as a concept type thing, their bench unit being able to produce as well as it did last year. But most specifically, Christian Brown being able to step into that true 6-man role and be their top guy leading that unit.
Okay. I like that. That's a good shout. Because as you said, and as we know, Bruce Brown was very impactful for them last postseason and was really as much of an impact as any of those 5 starters were. And when you talk about the role play of KCP or even the production of MPJ or Aaron Gordon, he was as essential to that run. He was so productive as that 6th man. So Christian Braun's going to have to do a lot of that. The direction I'm going with here is arguably their starter who went under the radar the most and struggled the most, especially in the back half of the postseason last year, and that was MPJ. Not that he was terrible, but the defense was better than it's been in the past. The rebounding was something that really was of note, but he definitely wasn't shooting the ball anywhere near as he is known to shoot it, anywhere near a rate that he would have been happy with. His percentages were down across the board. He was about 35% from 3. Postseason before that, which given was a few years previous to that, he was at about 40%. That's a pretty significant margin on a guy who's looking to shoot 6, 7, 8 threes a night. That type of volume and that type of production, he could have a really large sway. And there wasn't that many games for them where it's like, oh, MPJ is absolutely on fire and he might drop 30 tonight. But he's the type of guy who could do that. Will he have to do it often? Probably not, because Jokic and Jamal Murray exist and we know what they do in the postseason. But if they can get a little bit more of those splash games from MPJ where it just looks where he can't miss, instead of the nights where he just continues to shoot regardless and instead is not hitting, that could be a really big swing factor for them.
I think that's a great caveat to Gabe's point of the bench being important, because if the bench isn't as good as it was last year, then like you said, MPJ is going to have to be a lot better than what he was, especially like in the finals where he was like just kind of out there. Like you said, he was rebounding a little bit. His defense was kind of cool, but offensively, he was just out there. Like, he was knocking down shots like he usually does. And he's usually a super efficient player. And it just wasn't there in the finals. I'm going to go to the other starter, which I think always goes under the radar. Like, Gabe didn't even think about it when he was just talking about defensive guys that are stoppers. Like KCP, man. I think personally, low key is at an all defensive type of season. Like, he's been matching up with some of the best players in the league and clamping them. Like, he's been great defensively, man. Always been a good defender, but I think this season, like, it's kind of elevated a little bit. Like, he's taking on a little more of like a chip on the shoulder. Like, I can really like lock guys down. He's done that, like, especially in critical moments. His 3-point shooting is always very important for the team, and he's somebody that can just like be, a threat like on the break. He can get hot, knock down some shots, and help these guys win playoff games. And he's done it in 2 spots now where he's been a critical piece on the championship team. And if he's playing like as well as he has this regular season into the playoffs, he's going to be another like big factor on why this team can be a champion again. And I just think he's somebody that always goes under the radar, but he always does his job. So as long as that continues, like, it's just going to keep elevating, the role players on this team even more.
Yeah,
I feel like this team as a whole, it seemed like almost everybody was knocked down for a lot of last playoffs. It might have went down a little bit towards like the end of the postseason run, but those last 2 rounds, like, I really feel like they had everybody so outmatched. I mean, some of those Lakers games were close, but we know they were firmly in control of that series. And then even especially the finals, it's like pretty much from tip off of game 1, it's like, yeah, the Nuggets got this. So I think they'll have it a little bit more difficult this time around than they did last year. So if they just aren't having this ungodly shooting like they did last year, they're definitely going to have less room to like be able to get away with some of those just slowdowns from like Michael Porter and some other people.
Definitely give you some less margin for error for sure.
And it's like, we know what their top guys are going to do. Like Jamal Murray, bubble aside, this guy is a proven just playoff killer. Like, this guy is that guy in the playoffs. And we know Jokic, as great as he is, he always just levels it up in the postseason, which being an MVP guy and being able to do that in the playoffs is just like a luxury, because not every MVP levels up in the playoffs, but he does. He gets even better. So they just, like we pretty much just alluded to, they only need like a couple more guys to have like those big games to help them like still win in the series. Like Gabe said, like in that like Lakers series, there were like some moments where they probably should have lost some games, but then it's like, here comes Bruce Brown off the bench, knocking down shots. He just hit 3 threes in the quarter and it just helps shift the game. It was stuff like that they don't need that much outside of Murray and Jokic and what, their guys do on defense, Aaron Gordon, KCP and company. But if they just get a little bit out of some role players, it's almost like GG's for everybody.
Definitely be the most interesting thing to see track with them. But I want to talk about another one of their teams they're contending with in OKC. Obviously a very young team. So the Gordon Hayward acquisition is going to be an interesting one for me. Part of that X factor with Gordon Hayward is always just, can he be healthy? That's obviously always been the biggest thing with him over the last 4 to 5 years now. But on a team that is as young as OKC is, that basically is all young dudes with little to very little playoff experience in the majority of their rotation, Hayward's going to be really important for them. A guy who does have some playoff rotation, although he hasn't seen the playoffs in a while, but he's got lots of time especially from his time in Utah. As long as he can be on the court, how he gets fit into the rotation is still unclear. He's only a few games deep in OKC, but being able to be that veteran guy who can have that bit of composure, that bit of experience to help those guys transition through, especially that first round, just to get them settled. Already he looks more committed on the defensive end than he ever did in Charlotte, which, lo and behold, big surprise, he actually wants to play defense now that he's actually on a competitive team. So hopefully that translates to the offensive end as well, and we see a bit more production from Gordon Hayward. And outside of just their main guys from Shea, Chet, and J-Dub, we can get that bit more production from Hayward, and that experience can shine through and hopefully give them a little bit of an edge.
That's a great point. Even like it has been a while since he's been in the postseason, crazy enough, but I've like remember, I think it was the bubbles. That the last time?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because he wasn't on the 21 team. So the bubble, yeah, he was injured for most of that playoff run. He came back and Boston like instantly like stole the game like against elimination or something like that. Like So super impactful guy. Saw him on the court last night. He looked decent. Back healthy and everything, so that's good. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I went with J-Dub, and that just might be the laziest thing, but staying away from Shea, which is like the obvious, like, how does he perform in his first time in the playoffs being the guy? I think Shea will be fine. But J-Dub, I want to see if J-Dub can continue this like level of play that he's been having over like the last 30, 35 games. Like because he's been like damn near elite over this stretch. He's been really good, super efficient, self-creation, spot up shooting, doing a lot offensively. If he can keep this up, that's just a great thing to have outside of Shea. It's another guy that you can look to, put the ball in his hands. He can create offense. It's always great to have as many creators as you can on the offensive side in the playoffs, because when you get into those moments, sometimes guys got to make difficult shots, make tough plays. And the way J-Dub's been playing over this last, couple of months, 2.5 months, if he can carry that into the postseason, I think that makes OKC a little more scary than what they already are.
It's an interesting team because we got 3 different players here. Mine, I went with one of my players that I stand for no reason. I went with Lou Dort here because I just feel like every year he just like, well, I shouldn't say every year because they missed the playoffs a couple of years, but every time he has an opportunity, he just ends up having some big game. Like I feel like I remember a big Lou Dort playing game. I remember specifically that game 7 in the bubble. Like he just has those moments where he just like can explode. And this year, like his volume is down on pretty much everything, but his efficiency is also going pretty significantly up at the same time. He's literally like became a 30% or not 30%, that'd be bad. A 40% 3-point shooter out of nowhere this year, which looking at past years, like, yeah, it's lower volume, but last year he was at 33. He was at 33 before that. He was at 34 in 2021, and then he wasn't even at 30% his first year. So, like, just that growth and that spacing that's going to give them, that's valuable, especially if you assume a non-shooter and Giddey will be on the court for a lot of time. And then I've said all of this without even mentioning his defensive impact and the fact that he's probably going to be guarding the other team's best player every single night, which in this conference, that could be a matchup on a Devin Booker. That could be a matchup on a De'Aaron Fox. That could be a matchup on a Luka Doncic, depending on how this play-in pans out. Like, his role is going to be super valuable.
You even go back to that game 7 in the bubble. They were daring him to shoot. Like, take as many threes as you want. And he made him pay. So I'm just going to assume, because just from, like, watching them, teams still kind of, like, live with him taking threes, even though he's been knocking them down at a good rate. So if that 40% is somewhat real, that could be a series swinger, honestly. Like, if he's just hitting those timely shots, because teams are kind of daring him to shoot. But it's good that he's been shooting well. You could really
So I mean,
yeah, 40% on 5 attempts that's not really a small feat. You just got to hope that translates into the postseason at the same time, because we've seen guys shoot 40% on like 7 to 8 attempts, and then you get to the playoffs, it's down to like 34 on the same volume, because every shot just means a little more. But you can almost point to their 3-point shooting too as just like a big time X factor, and that goes to a lot more guys than just Lou Dort too. Isaiah Joe, he's gonna have to play a big role. Casey Wallace, is Chet gonna still be a pretty good spacer in the playoffs? Shea's been taking more threes. How's that can impact his game? Like, there's a lot of caveats, man. But they're kind of playing with house money at the same time, man, because this is about to be their first real playoff run. So, we'll just kind of get to test these guys, see what their temp is in the postseason, and I think they're going to maybe not surprise people, but for some reason, just the more I watch this team, I have a lot more confidence in them when it gets to the playoffs, man.
Yeah, they're not the average young team. They don't make a lot of the typical mistakes that young teams do. So there's definitely reason to have a lot more confidence in them. But I'm glad you brought up the 3-point shooting as a whole, because me included and a lot of people's concerns, main potential issue with this OKC team this year was the 3-point shooting. Now, they've pretty much held on to the number 1 spot in 3-point shooting percentage all year, about middle of the pack in terms of volume. So they're not exactly checking a bunch of threes, but the fact that they're still up there above the Clippers, pretty good sign for them. But like you say, how does that hold on? Especially when you have a lot of these role players, these younger guys how does that hold? Typically, those are the types of guys that might slip and start to have a bit of problems in the playoffs from a 3-point shooting perspective, especially when you talk about a Lou Dort who's shooting so much better than he typically has, a Cason Wallace who shot way better than anyone ever would have expected during his rookie season. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch as well. But all in all, like you say, the fact that they're here, they're in a good spot.
House money.
Let's move to their other top 4 seed in the West, and the team who's right behind them in 3-point shooting percentage. The LA Clippers, for the first time, knock on wood, are for the time being heading into the postseason healthy. That out of the way, what is their X factor outside of health, which always is the stipulation for these guys?
Is it lazy to say Paul George or James Harden? I feel like it's
No,
lazy,
I don't think so.
but I think it's just true at this point. I went with Paul George because he's the second best guy. Like Gabe's been alluding to, there's tough matchups defensively every night, every series you're going to be in. And Paul George is going to get a bulk of those matchups too, along with Kawhi Leonard. But, man, he needs to just have one of those just clean playoff runs, which we haven't seen in a little while, just being good the entire way through, not having, a stinker stretch of games, a stinker series, which he's kind of been susceptible to, these last like 5-6 years. If the Clippers can get a clean playoff run where he's being a good number 2, because I'm assuming Kawhi, if he's out there, if he's healthy, basketball gods, please let this man be healthy. He's going to do exactly what he always does in the playoffs, and that's be one of the best players in the world. James Harden as a 3 instead of a 2, I think is perfect for him right now. So if he's having games where he's only putting up 14 points and only taking 9 shots, if Paul George is doing what he's supposed to do, they'll be fine. They won't need those explosive games from a James Harden. They won't be relying on that like other teams have in the past. So that's why I think Paul George being in the middle of the pecking order, that is the most important part for this team. And it might be lazy, but I look at like other spots on their team, like if somebody in their big man rotation, like we were talking about last week, isn't playing good, they got 2 more bodies that they can probably throw in there. And, given the matchup, they might have to throw another body in there because they just might, be better for that matchup. So I just look at Paul George as the guy. It's like there's going to be a little more on your plate because of the defensive aspect too, but offensively, you got to be good too. And he's in kind of a rough stretch right now, so hopefully he's getting that out of his system before we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it lazy. I think it kind of rings similar to like my Cat point, where their playoff struggles are so well documented that is kind of always going to be a bit of their X factor, just like the health would be. I think it does make sense to go with Paul George over James Harden, just because the role James Harden is in, kind of like you were alluding to, they don't really need his scoring punch as much. So even if he's not having like the most efficient shooting nights, the fact that he has so many players to spread the ball to, from Kawhi to Paul George to Norm Powell to pretty much that whole roster top to bottom, there's a lot of things that he can still do to be impactful without having to score the ball. And the guy I went with for their X factor is kind of that same boat of he can find a lot of ways to be impactful without scoring the ball. And I went with Russell Westbrook here. He accepted that bench role. And I know like last year in the postseason and pretty much for most of his Clippers tenure, he has a lot of times where he's out there shooting tour dates, but he'll just have like an insane defensive night. Or he's going out there and this night he's going to be the best passer on the floor. This night he's going to be the best defender on the floor. Then maybe this other night he'll score. And I think having that versatility of having so many different ways to affect the game is going to be really valuable for this Clippers team, because we know they have a lot of really well-rounded guys. And so Russ being a part of that, and especially coming off the bench, he can kind of see the vibe of the game, see what he needs to do that night, what's sort of missing that he needs to fill in, and he can go get the job done for them. And really just what he's done in this Clippers tenure as far as really moving away from that Russ we saw before, where like you kind of have to tailor to his play style, and being able to change that narrative on this Clippers tenure and change it to where he can really just play within them and impact how they need him to, I think that dramatically increases his value going into this playoff run.
That is a hell of a call out, man.
Very good point. That was one of the guys I was considering here too. Like you say, the fact that he's been able to impact this team in so many ways, the fact he's been so versatile, the fact he can be such an impact on the defensive end for this team now. He can still get you a little bit on the offensive end from a scoring or playmaking standpoint if needed. He's going to be really important for them. The third guy I'm going to point out here as a potential X factor whose game is pretty much always revolved around being the prototypical X factor offensive guy, Norman Powell. He's that type of guy who in a playoff game, he might get you 20, 25 points off the bench and might be that deciding factor to win you a game. Thankfully, he's already back from a scary injury he had a couple of weeks ago, so that doesn't seem to be a concern. And as long as he's in the lineup, I mean, dude's shooting over 45% from three this year. And he's always been a good three-point shooter, but this year he just seems to be even more locked in than ever. If they're going to have a guy off their bench who's going to win them a game, Russ will have a chance, but Norm very much has a chance to be that guy as well.
He's been shooting the shit out of the fucking ball, man. Like,
Crazy.
kept pace all year. Yeah. Like you say, he's somebody that can just come off the bench and have one of those just random, not even random, but a 25-point game that, like, swings a game in a series. So that's the, like you said, definition of an X factor, like, for real.
I think it was Kenny who said he has, like, the best and worst job in the league because playing with those guys on that team, like, he just gets so many open looks. And it's like, bro, the pressure of, like, bro, if you miss, like, no way you just missed a shot that open and sold it. But he keeps making them, and if he keeps making them in the postseason, like, it's hard to not give him open looks because you got Kawhi and Paul George on the wings, James Harden bringing the ball up the floor. It's not like Zubac ain't spacing the floor, but he's very fluent around the basket, so you can't just leave him alone. Like, it's just he's a nightmare for other teams because what are you supposed to do about that?
So you got to pick your poison, and he's often the guy that benefits from that, getting those open looks.
Definitely, but we'll see. Like you say, between Russ, between Norm, they got a few guys who could change the series for him, and that's a good sign as long as the PG and the James Hardens are on the upper end of how they can swing a series, and they aren't the James Harden of last year where he shoots you out of a couple games.
Or not shoot at all.
Or not shoot at all. You can get a lot of things with Harden.
He had like one good playoff game, maybe two last
year. He had two fantastic games, and then probably every other game was just bad. Every other game he played was awful.
You either got greatness or you got something tragic from Harden last year.
Like a below average starter is what he was playing. It was just that's one of the weirdest, like, just playoff performances I've ever seen. And James Harden's had a lot of those, but that to that extreme where you're either the best player on the floor or probably the worst player on the floor, it was just the most insane paradox, man.
Yeah, he's one of those guys who, like, it's weird because I feel like James Harden was a floor raiser for so long, but like the past couple years, dude, his floor is low, but his ceiling's still really high.
I don't really remember what happened the first year in Philly. I just feel like Embiid missed like his usual playoff stretch, and they just got too far behind the 8 ball.
I don't think Harden was great, but he wasn't anywhere near as awful as he was in stretches last year.
I just assume that every year they go up 3-2 on Boston that they'll lose. Like I feel like that's the story of being. Besides the year,
I mean, no, that only happened once, but I mean, it seems like they always go up on somebody and like blow a lead.
It was Toronto once. It was Boston once. I don't know if they played Milwaukee in a series.
They did against the Hawks. No, they were down 3-2, but still, it was the Hawks. Yeah. You were up like 2-1 or something like that. You were up like 25 in Game 5 at home and lost.
Yeah, that's a bit of an issue to say the least. All right, let's jump to another team who's looking to bounce back off of some playoff disappointment last year. Well fought, but the Sacramento Kings.
Yes,
a team that'll look to hopefully get through the first round this year.
I know somebody has the obvious. Oh, you think it's one of the more difficult ones?
Yeah, because there's a lot of guys. Like the first name that came to my mind was like Malik Monk, but I feel like his kind of player archetype sometimes is just not the most impactful in the playoffs.
I thought the first name that you would have even thought about, or the only name you would have thought about, was Domas. I just thought that was the only guy that you would think of.
See, yeah, it's like he kind of has that cat syndrome too, but I almost just kind of expect him to be ass. So like, because I just feel like I just feel like his play style, like not being able to space the floor at all, and he's so limited. Like, I just feel like it's just a given that he's probably not going to be the most effective. So
That's fair. Okay.
I think his, as weird as it is to say, I think his ceiling is fairly low.
Okay.
So like, I think the actual range of what they can give you might be a little bigger for other guys, like a Malik Monk, like a Kevin Herter. I actually went with Harrison Barnes because his averages are low key kind of low this year, but like I feel like he still has a lot of that scoring potential where he can like get you close to 20 on any night. So I mean, they're a weird team because like all those guys could really be it. Because I think a lot of them have really had their ups and downs. Specifically, Kevin Herter has had a lot of downs. So it puts them in a spot where it could be anybody. It's just like, will they have that consistency? But then you could also talk about defense with them. That's always going to be up there. So like,
I don't even know if that's an X factor. They're just not.
Yeah, it's just, and so the Kings just have so many like question marks that just like, yikes.
They're
the
like,
name I actually wrote was Harrison Barnes, but I wasn't confident about it.
they're so close to being like, not so close, but they're right there to being like a great team. They're just not. Like, it seems like they're almost like that, like Aaron Gordon type of like move away from being like this team that's, 6 games they look great, and then the next 6 games they look awful. It's like they're just that one. Like, he's been awesome though. That's the great. He's been like their best player the last like month and a half.
He's been awesome, but he just is a low ceiling player as far as how far your team can go.
Yeah, in the modern NBA, he's just like, even if he has his double doubles in the playoffs, like putting up 17, 11, it's nasty. It's inefficient.
We're not moved.
He'd have to be a third option in an ideal world. And
yes,
their most realistic path for that right now is, barring a massive move, they're just hoping that Keegan Murray continues to develop. And I don't know if he's that guy. I think he's a great X factor for you in the postseason. I mean, we've seen him drop.
He was my guy too.
30 bombs and a 40 piece this year. But when he gets hot behind the arc, it's great. But like you say, Gabe, the Domas concerns in the playoffs are real. If you talk to Kendrick Perkins, apparently he should be in MVP talks, but Kendrick Perkins says a lot of crazy stuff, so we'll leave that at that. But point being, they're going to be limited depending on what Sabonis can give them. I'd be hard pressed to imagine that he's going to be as bad as he was last postseason. I think he's going to be better.
Yeah.
Is that going to be enough? Is it going to be great? Is it going to be all NBA caliber level? I'm not sold on that. That's the biggest concern. But I do think if anyone's going to really swing a series for them, especially in the first round, if they're going to squeak a series win, I think Keegan Murray has the biggest chance to really win a game or two if he really gets hot behind the arc.
He was the name I wrote down too. His defense has been a lot better this year too. But
Definitely.
Like you said, he's somebody that can get hot, hit like 8 threes in a playoff game. Like, he's that type of shooter. Thing about Domas, like you said, I think last postseason the Warriors were like probably the worst matchup that he could have like went against, because the Warriors just know how to expose. The Warriors are that typical team. They know how to expose those weaknesses because they've been that great for that long. And, he has a lot of exploitable things in the postseason. So maybe matchup dependent, but like you said, he should be better. Like, it can't get much worse than what he was, to where Trey Lyles' minutes were like 10 times better than what he was given. But yeah, I agree. Like, there's definitely a lot of ways, like you said, Gabe, we can go with this team. But Keegan Murray, I think if he's playing like their second best guy, that just gives me maybe a little more confidence, to be honest. Because I think Malik Monk, he's going to do what he does off that bench. Like Herter, Barnes, I can't expect much from them. One, because Kevin's been so awful this season that unless he got some Miami Heat voodoo somehow, he's probably going to be bad in the playoffs. Harrison Barnes has typically always been a playoff dropper, to be honest. Like, he's never really been that good in the playoffs. So I can't expect much from those guys. De'Aaron's going to do what he does. Domas, he's a wild card. So Keegan Murray, I think, is if he plays at a pretty high level, like Devin said, they could probably still, a couple games, maybe a series even.
The Kings are a hard one, bro.
I love them though, man. Those are my boys. I love them, but damn.
The less you're confident about I feel like the less you're confident about, the harder it is to pick an X factor because it's like everything ranges. Like, bro, everything could range with them.
Yeah, to be like that, the Kings were definitely one of those teams.
Interesting offseason ahead for them, in my opinion.
Definitely some interesting decisions that need to get made.
I think we should talk. I feel like Phoenix has like maybe two obvious options. I went with Grayson Allen though. Bradley Beal being on the floor is the other one, but I went with Grayson Allen because this 3-point shooting is kind of ridiculous, bro. And I ain't never seen him coming like this. So if he time out, hold on,
we're back.
But yikes! But if he can really shoot like that in a postseason, that's really dangerous. If assuming the whole big three is on the floor, they can all space the floor. If then having him out there, he could almost serve that like Norm Powell role of like you gotta guard these three main guys, and so this fourth guy is getting all the open looks. And if you can keep knocking them down, shoot, he could give you like an 18-point per game playoff series. I bet. Don't like. Hey, that's not out of the realm of possibility at all, and that could sway a series big time.
He's the guy for me too because last year Landry Shamet was getting no shots, and Landry Shamet can't shoot anymore. So if you're giving Grayson Allen no shots, I think he'll knock them down more often than not. And he's just overall been like a really improved player, like all around. I think he's just been better at every aspect of the game, and I like to see that because Phoenix needed somebody that could step up. They got him very late in the offseason, and he's been one of their better players, one of their more consistent players too. So, like you said, Gabe, he could easily have a big playoff series, like just one of those random role player popping off in the series. He could be that guy for Phoenix. Outside of like Beal's health, there's some other things that you can point out, but I feel like Grayson was pretty obvious for me.
Yeah, Grayson's a pretty obvious shout, but thanks to the last two games, give me some Bol love, man. Some Bol X Factor talks in here. Man just dropped 25 the other night. I don't know if he's part of the playoff rotation, but hey, outside of Grayson Allen, outside of Royce O'Neal, I don't know where those minutes are going. I don't even know if Josh Okogie is going to be locked into the rotation at this point after he really slowed down after the first few weeks of the season. So, hey, Bol keeps playing this well. Just saying, there's a possibility.
I'm on the big podcast with Shaq right now, bro. Like, Devin's always talking about Bol.
Hey, we ain't saying he Wemby, but nah, he's been playing decent lately. Been playing pretty decent. Not even decent. Don't ask me that, bro.
All right, okay. All right.
Okay. I'm not trying to get in trouble, man. Don't ask me that.
All I'm gonna say is Buddy went from a DNP to 25 points. It's the X Factor definition right there. So I'll leave it at that.
Maybe he was the real a year away from being a year away type of guy, man.
Maybe.
Maybe this is his breakout.
They say he just wasn't motivated. So, maybe he sees those minutes up for grabs and he's like,
Not even that. You playing with KD. KD probably has like a bedroom in the facility. Like he probably sleeps at the facility half the time because he just puts in so much work. You see KD putting in all that work. He probably like, okay, I gotta follow suit, man. I gotta follow suit.
That's good, bro. That's because KD. That's for real. Like every time you hear Kevin Durant talk, like bro is like never had a girl. He don't got no kids. Like he don't
brush his hair,
bro. He just for real. Like he just hoops and tweets. He hoops and tweets. That's it, bro.
Occasionally does his podcast. That's it.
So Hooper's Hooper, man.
Did you have a team that you were about to call out next, Dev?
No, I did not. But let's jump to the Pels.
Okay.
Jump to the Pels because again, like the Clippers, knock on wood, they've been healthy. They've been relatively healthy. So going into the playoffs, assuming nothing changes, we should be okay, and we can actually talk about non-health things related to the Pelicans.
Did either of y'all pick Zion? Because I didn't pick Zion, but I'm just curious because his play's been a little bit down this year, but like I feel like he still has the top two. No.
Okay, I did. Okay.
You did? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
I was
let
about
you
to switch
pop
my
up.
name because I mean it's pretty simple. For the most part, it's been down recently since they put him on the ball more. Been a little bit better. Well, I wouldn't say a little bit better. It's been dramatically better. Like point Zion's actually a real thing, I think, in this league. And every time he's been on the ball in his career, like good things have happened for the Pelicans offensively. So just him being that guy, can he maybe elevate his play even more when he gets to playoffs? Because for this team to be successful, they're at their best when Zion is like easily their best player. I don't want it to be like that kind of like indecisiveness of like, is this BI's team? Is this Zion's team? I feel like it just needs to be completely Zion's team. That's why I think he's the most important player because, in my opinion, for them to have the most success in this playoff run, he has to be the best player for them. So, hopefully Point Zion just continues. And, they have a lot of like role players that you can look at, but I think they'll do their thing. It's just, can Zion sustain this level of play? And can he, if he ramps it up, can he stay on the floor? Like, that's really important too. Because I feel like we talked about it last week, like he might have toned it back a little bit, just so he can be out there. But he's going to have to rev it up for that playoff stretch if they want to win, a series or, everybody wants to, make as deep of a run as possible. So he has to be like the best player for them, in my opinion.
Yeah, just these past 10 games, I mean, he's putting up assist totals 8, 9, 6, 9, 8, 11, like, and that's on like they're winning, like they're 7-3 in that stretch. So like you said, I mean, it really is working. Not that assists are directly equated to playmaking, but just looking at a super base level, like it's real. And I think that he like for even though he had the downs this season, I really feel like a lot of it's probably just preserving him so he's not like pushing too hard, hurts himself for the postseason. I think you could really see a breakout like Zion just goes ballistic in the playoffs. I feel like it's in there because this dude's always been unstoppable. Like going to the rim, I don't know who's stopping that. And especially like the Clippers, they got a lot of people they can throw at him. But if he gets into the paint, like he could really get paint buckets on most of those guys.
He seems like just a playoff performer. Like honestly, we haven't seen him there. Yeah, but I don't know. He just seems like he's that type of like guy that might elevate in the playoffs if he's healthy and everything.
How did he do in March Madness? I don't remember. That's like 5 years ago.
He was great.
He was very good.
Blew
a tire, but
yeah,
he was good.
That was before
March Madness.
Yeah, because he came back for like ACC tournament. He was great in the ACC tournament. I think Duke won that tournament.
I believe
and
so.
They made it to the Elite Eight, I think, and he was pretty good there.
Yeah, they made it pretty far.
Yeah, I watched them pretty closely. I'm pretty sure I had them getting upset round 1, so I was keeping an eye on them.
Round 1?
I was expecting Taco Fall and them Giants on that UCF team. I think it
was. That was round of 32. Yeah.
Around the 32 it was, yeah.
And they should have won that game. That's the craziest part about it.
Yeah, they should have. That was crazy. But
I feel like people are mad because like RJ Barrett was getting last shots, like he wasn't a top 3 player in the country. That was crazy.
RJ was actually the number 1 recruit in that class.
Yeah, he was. He was the guy coming in. He was showing out for Team Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God! Real quick, man. Real quick, bro. The homie that tweeted. I don't know if he was trolling. I don't think he was because I was going through replies. He seemed serious. But saying Coach K failed this man by not putting the shooters around him, like, bro, you fucking see it. One, it's not his fault that Cam Reddish, Trey Jones just couldn't shoot in college. Like, they got to college and forgot how to shoot. Bro, it's college basketball. Like, spacing doesn't exist. I'm sorry to tell you. Maybe it does like right now, but this was 2018. Like, spacing did not exist back then, bro. I'm sorry.
Not at all. No, that was crazy.
Dude, there's so many guys that are like 40% 3-point shooters in college come to the NBA and like can't shoot or nothing, like
because they take like 2 attempts.
Yeah. But like the attempts aren't high, and also just the line being closer. Like most pretty much anybody who plays basketball at that level has a pretty sound jump shot. So, like, that's really an NBA mid-range shot most of the time. Like, a lot of, like, taking threes at the line in college, because a lot of, like, the best NBA shooters, they can shoot, like, several steps behind the line.
Yeah, it's not that much farther than like a high
that.
school three, and a high school three is a NBA mid-range jump shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a bit of an adjustment.
I
Back to the
didn't
Pels.
have yeah, you can go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I want to raise a point that could potentially help the Pels, but if it doesn't go their way, could be a detriment to them and Zion's potential interior scoring ability. The player in mind I had is Herb, but this can extend to JV as well. What type of shooting they get from those guys, and in turn, what type of spacing they get is going to be really important. Obviously, they just need some level of production on the offensive end, but they could get to a point where if Herb is not shooting the ball well at all, if JV is not shooting the ball well at all, teams are going to start off letting those guys shoot. If they don't hit anything, they're just going to leave them. And if you got two of your guys that you're just leaving and Zion's not a threat from three, it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that offensively. You can get away with that a little bit more on a night-to-night basis during the regular season. Now, of course, Larry Nance gets a lot of those 5 minutes because of that. Not that he's exactly a three-point shooter, but his cutting's better. He's a little bit more mobile. He can give you a little bit more on the offensive end. But you get into a 5, 6, 7-game series, teams start scheming against that. It'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that. Can Herb shoot well enough, or do they have to run a lot of Trey Murphy minutes? But then, of course, you run into the concern of if Herb isn't there locking down defensively a ton, how does that run? And because of that, he ended up playing 40 minutes a game when they were in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So they're going to hope that they can get that again from Herb. We'll see how they coordinate that offense because of it. Shot 40% from three, I believe, in the playoffs the first go around. Yeah, 42% from three, but only 2 attempts. So that'll be the interesting thing from a spacing standpoint. How they balance that, or do they have to rely more on a Trey Murphy? Do they have to rely more on a Larry Nance or even a Jose Alvarado, who potentially goes in if they have to run small and get a little bit more spacing involved? I think that'll be the biggest thing for them to see is how can they balance, especially with Herb, his defensive impact compared to potentially the lack of spacing that they lose on the offensive end.
That's a hell of a point too. Especially like I feel like Herb's been shooting. I don't know what his percentage is, but I feel like he's shooting pretty high this year for like his
43%.
standards. Yeah, but like we said with like Lou Dort, how does that translate to the postseason when teams? We just have to assume with the the star power that they have with Bi, Zion, and even CJ, like teams will probably live with Herb taking threes, and you got to make teams pay because in this modern NBA, like you'll just get played off the floor and. They need him. They need his defense out there because even when you look at like just their regular, rotation of 5 guys out there, like nobody even like comes close to Herb Jones offensively on this team at all. So they're gonna need that because he's defensively, like his defense is a big time like proponent to them. And like you said, if like Val isn't really providing much space and Herb's not, we could just easily see teams build a wall and just dare Zion to either, try and get into the paint or just kick out to basically non-shooters, and you'd have 3 non-shooters on the court most times. So that's a big problem that they're going to face potentially. But who knows? Maybe we get a random stretch where they just shoot the hell out of the ball and it helps them win a series. So that's actually a great X factor. I wasn't even really thinking of it in that light, but that's a great point, Devin.
I got one other different player whose name I'm going to throw into the hat, but he may honestly be just even too good. I don't know, because this is another one of my guys. I had to give Trey Murphy some love here. I feel like he really just does it all. Like, he can shoot. He's super athletic. He can defend. And he's like, he can really step up if guys go down, but he can also just fit into his role and just be perfectly fine just fitting in where needed. So I feel like he just has a lot of versatility in that light. And the one playoff series they played in, he was not close to the player he is now. Like, he played pretty well, like had an efficient series, but he was only taking like 4 shots a game, averaged like 5 points. So not even close to the player he is now. These days, if he's scoring in the high 20s for a night or even hitting like close to 30, I'm not too shocked, and I think that he's capable of that. And if he does that for a game or two, that could really steal them some come playoff time. So I think he's going to be super impactful for them in that forward spot.
It's only year 3 for him, which is crazy to think about.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that shout. And like you say, even though the numbers weren't crazy a couple of years ago in the postseason, he was still very much fitting that mold from a guy who was very much on the fringe of the rotation going into the postseason to then play in tournament and playoff time. It was like, okay, he's having a couple of really good games, competing defensively, shot very efficiently from 3. So like you say, even now showing a greater likeness to be that type of performer in the playoffs, just more production. I like it. I think he's got a lot of room to potentially be that X factor for them.
I think he won them their last playing game too. Like, not won them, but he had like a crazy start of the fourth quarter or something like that. So,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Good shout. Yeah, as we get farther along in the standings, it's like you could just point at 10 different players or things that could be X factors.
True. Speaking of 10 different players, yeah, our last team being the Warriors, I think they got a lot of options.
I'm going Klay Thompson.
Me too.
Really? Well, we're unanimous.
Okay, I'm going Klay Thompson, man.
Wow.
Look, I think this last game, or it might have been their last game, but this was a few days ago. But when they played the Nuggets, they were kicking their ass in the first half. Klay was hooping. Klay scored 0 points in the second half, and they ended up blowing I feel like they were up 16 or something like that. They ended up losing by double digits. I think Klay right now is just synonymous with this team being good. And if he stinks, they just struggle to win games. But if he's good, it seems like they win, or they're competitive at least. So if Klay gets to the play-in and he stinks, they'll probably go home right away. But if Klay plays good, they could probably get out the play-in. Everything, it comes down to Klay Thompson right now for this team, in my opinion.
Man, I feel like it is definitely a little deeper than that. Klay is the main guy, but the reason I said there was a lot of options is because Wiggins was literally the second best player on the squad when they went to finals. And he just ain't been that level, but there's no way he just forgot. Surely he still has that in him somewhere. Draymond's had so many just issues on and off the court. Well, they're all, I guess, on the court, but non-basketball related things. That it's will he be impactful? Will he even be able to be on the floor? Some of the young guys like Pods and Trace Jackson Davis, they can be really impactful some nights, but then they're also just so young that they also can have nights where they're not on. Steve Kerr, will he let Moses Moody play basketball games? Probably not. So, I mean, there's it feels like Steph, low-key, Kuminga has been the second best player. Kevon Looney's usually really consistent. And then everybody else, I'm you're a possible X factor because everybody on that team is so up and down. So I was really surprised that we were unanimous. I'll say that.
I mean, there's a lot of variables, but at the end of the day, the guy who, despite all their young guys that you talked about, has been the most up and down and the most polarizing this year is Klay. And at the end of the day, of all of those guys, he's the one who's got the most potential to be able to go out and drop 25, 30 points, to be able to go have that big Game 6, Game 7 performance, to really be able to show out, show that he's been there, show that experience, show that poise, and be able to be that true second option in a postseason environment next to Curry. I mean, reality of the situation is, even if Kuminga plays great, if Kuminga is by far and away their second best player and Wiggins or especially Klay don't rival that, they're probably not going very far. Kuminga's great, but if he's your number 2 in this Western Conference, it's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah, they can get away with that type of stuff in 2022 when the Lakers weren't even in the playoffs. Denver was missing their next 2 best guys. You can get away with that then when Luka's throwing lobs to Dwight Powell. Get away with that. But today, you might not beat the Lakers in the play-in, to be honest.
Warriors are cooked, man. I hate to see it.
They've been a little they've been better recently, but
they've been 8-2. They've been a lot better, but I'm still not sold on it.
They just rival last year's team, but they're worse at the same time. And I can't really point to what that is that's making them just completely worse. Draymond did miss a lot of time with suspensions and stuff. Like, that's probably one variable. But even then, like, I don't know. Last year they had the issues where they couldn't win on the road. Now it's just like they just can't win consistently at all. Like, for the most part, other than this last little stretch. I don't know. It's just weird. Steph had like a stretch where he was kind of playing bad. He's been great recently. Clay up and down, the whole Steve Kerr just playing 11 guys. Like, it's just so much going on to where this seems like a gap year in the Warriors run where they probably get sent home in the play-in, to be honest. Like, I would probably, if I was a gambling guy, I would probably like put money on that, like that they would probably get sent home.
Nah, if the play-in started today, I think I'd actually predict the Kings falling out. They've been pretty mid recently. The Warriors have been really hot recently, and you got one game. We saw like literally last year, Game 7. One game, give me Steph over anything the Kings got going on.
I'm sorry, I can't confidently say that.
No, I think they definitely have a chance. It'd be fun.
They gotta beat the Lakers.
Bro, stop.
Personally, give me the Lakers, right? I'll probably take the Lakers in the play-in matchup over the Warriors. At least I know what I'm getting from the Lakers' top two guys.
I don't. LeBron's like lower body injuries are always stacking up in the postseason, bro. Is he going to be 100%? We don't know.
Give me Le ankle over Klay Thompson every day of the week right now.
Honestly, whoever ends up being the 9 seed and gets home court there could be pretty significant, which is probably weird to say, even though neither are far away from each other, but still.
Hey, Golden State travels pretty good. The Lakers actually
they've been better on the road this year. Like, can these guys figure it out and decide what they want to be better at? Like,
they're like Lakers at 10 is kind of weird because they're 20-9 at home, 11-19 on the road. Like, that's a pretty big swing. Warriors are 16-15 at home and 14-12 on the road. So, like, they're pretty much the same either way. So, I like the Lakers side of that, I think, is really what's going to make that home court.
Well,
didn't they win 7 road games last year?
Something like
8
that.
or some shit like that.
It was
the Lakers?
Nah, Golden State.
Something like that.
I'll tell you, man, the Lakers might have won 7 road games in the postseason, bro. Like, they took care of business in Memphis.
Yeah, that's
true.
They
did.
But yeah, no, every other team in the West is above 500 on the road this year, and then the Lakers are 11-19. So
they're the Warriors of this year.
Definitely a bit of a concern, and everyone's the same way out east, outside of the Bulls and the Hawks, which you wouldn't expect to be the teams coming out east.
I'm gonna be honest, I was very lazy when analyzing those two teams because let's just be brutally honest, they're probably not getting in.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The Hawks' only factor that matters is Trae on the court.
Trae Young's finger.
And if his finger can shoot a basketball, then they have a chance. And if they don't, then they ain't getting a game because Trae's the only reason they're getting a game.
I swear on everything I love, man, I wrote down Trae's finger as the X factor.
I wrote Trae's injury, so I'm there with you.
Crazy. Dang. Bro, I also look at the Bulls. I'm like, whose play could like get them
a new front office? That's their biggest X factor.
Like, bro, the X factor I wrote for the Bulls was Alex Caruso, and the only reason I put Alex Caruso is because that one game. Oh, bro, it was like literally like game 5 of the season, bro. He had some game where he was just hacking the shit out of the Raptors. They were not calling nothing, and then the Bulls came
about that
back
game for like 5 weeks.
That shit was like 4 months ago, and I'm still talking about it. So literally, because who watches the fucking Bulls? So my like headcanon of the Bulls, Kobe White is like too good to even be in consideration for that. Like, so like, bro,
I know what DeMar's gonna do in the playoffs, and it ain't good.
It's like Alex Caruso can go out and steal you a game.
They ain't making the playoffs.
Like, Alex Caruso will steal you a game by just straight just
hacking
the shit out of you, bro. So like,
you know what I realized, man?
That's the biggest X factor.
Not that I realized, but this is just so true. Like, if you're a good defender, you get away with anything, bro. Like, you almost gotta like decapitate somebody to get
the
a
rap
foul
was
call.
crazy.
Bro,
Oh my God.
what the fuck was that? Dante DiVincenzo that tackled Asar the other day? Like if that was OG will tackle him and there'll be a foul on Asar, but them no calling Dante was crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, for the Bulls, I wrote Drummond? Question mark? That's all I got, man. I'm sorry. Like,
okay, you heard it here first. Andre Drummond and Caruso's hacking is the X factors for the Bulls.
It's just like my thinking is if Vooch sucks, Drummond can come in and have a randomly good game that he's had, multiple times this season.
If he kicks out when he gets the offensive rebound, he can be valuable. If he puts it right back up, he's not valuable.
But he will get another offensive rebound.
He will. So he will look better on the stat sheet.
He will have a 9-point, 16 rebound game off the bench that might help them beat the Trae Young fingerless Hawks in the playing game.
DeJounte Murray masterclass. You're going to get San Antonio DeJounte for one game.
I was about to say, I pray to God, this is what I either want for the Hawks. I hope they stink so they shut Trae Young down and this is the last game that he'll ever play in Atlanta. Or I hope DeJounte's so good and carries them to the play-in and maybe they even make the playoffs that the front office will be like, you know what? We can just retool. We can trade Trae Young to San Antonio. Maybe get their pick this year, get one of our picks back. Hell, we'll even take on Keldon Johnson.
I know
that Trae Young will be gone.
Their last big trade was getting DeJounte from San Antonio. So they say, yeah, we'll take DeJounte. We'll give y'all Trae.
Just give us like one of our picks back, please, and we'll take y'all's first round pick this year.
Yeah, that would be the complete admission of failure from that front office. Like you are just you might as well have your resignation just sitting there ready to sign next to you. Like Landry Fields, you're done, bud. Like go back to Toronto, you're done. Like
have the Hawks ever been? The Hawks ain't never been on shit though, bro. Like even when the Hawks made the playoffs 10 years in a row, bro, like they made that one conference finals run and got dog. Was that even the conference finals? Or was that the second round that they got dogged by the Cavs?
Finals, they got swept.
I always forget because the Bulls were like that series was way better. The Bulls Cavs.
They got some really good ass teams too. Like the 2010 team was really good. Mm-hmm. They got swept in the second round, like brutally swept by the Magic.
That Bucks series was rough too in 2021. That's a whole different era, but that series was rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
This year, if they somehow make the playoffs, if they somehow make the playoffs this year, like Boston, Jason Tatum's not playing the fourth quarter.
This is my rationale with this Hawks team. Gosh, this is the third straight year of them being in the play-in. And it's just like, at what point do you just look at your roster and accept that we can't get better unless we like kind of reset a little bit, which sucks because we just reset not even 5, 6 years ago. Like it sucks, but sometimes you just gotta. This is what separates good teams and bad teams, right? It's the front offices that know, look, we're not going anywhere with what we have, and even though Trae Young's great, we got to move off of him in order to get better. And I don't trust this front office to do that. Just like we don't trust the Bulls front office to make right moves. Bad teams are bad teams for a reason. Mediocre teams stay mediocre for a reason. This Bulls,
is season 6.
Nets.
Season 6 of Trae Young, and you've already peaked is kind of crazy.
That's why those. Go ahead.
It's tough because they've had 3 top 5 picks, and the Trae pick was good. Obviously, missing out on Luka's tragic, but Trae in isolation is still good. Outside of that, you got a Kongwu who's fine, but it's not exactly raising your ceiling. It's not prototypical top 5 pick material. Same thing with DeAndre Hunter. So because Trae was so good so quick, you lost your chance to have any longer stretch of top 5 picks. But even still, 3 top 5 should be enough to be able to build yourself to some quality team, and then you have your later first that you've either traded for or that you get once you're competitive. One of them hit, at least for a couple of years, in John Collins, and then we know what's happened there. But the fact that they had only one of those top 5 picks actually amount to anything that raised their ceiling, that was their biggest downfall, because they were competitive as quick as they were. But like you say, we're 5-6 years into the Trey experiment, but there is no more ceiling to be raised because they missed out on Hunter, they missed out on Okongwu, and although we still hope they might improve a little bit, we're not exactly expecting either of them to be a co-star to Trae Young.
Yeah, I think they'll only improve if they get in different situations outside of Atlanta. Like, they just might be like kind of like the Bulls in a way of, we can't really develop our own talent unless they're just that good. And Trae Young was just that good. Like, they kind of got lucky that they traded Luka for like the next best player in the draft, being Trae Young, being how great he is, because like you said, you just ran off a few picks that they just didn't really hit on. I mean, they passed on some good talent in those drafts. And you even go back like just years of this team first round picks, man. Just hasn't been good. Like, nothing that they've really drafted has been good. Like, they don't grow talent well. And all the talent that they might grow well, they leave. Josh Smith left. Al Horford left. Even Jeff Teague ended up leaving at some point. Like I said, bad teams stay bad for a reason, and this is just what the Hawks are. We just don't talk about it in the same light as other teams, but they're down there too, man. They're close. They're close to the P word. They're very close.
Bro, Trey was low key just already a star in like 50 games. Like, the Hawks did not develop him for nothing. Like, he came in that good. He really just had to adjust to the speed of NBA ball, but. Yep. Literally, like, after the All-Star break, his rookie year, he was getting those shadow narratives to beat Luka for Rookie of the Year. So we don't even got to act like they had to develop him for that long to get him to where he is.
Like, you can't tell me DeAndre Hunter's not a good, like, a quality 3-and-D type player. He should be. I think it's more Atlanta.
He's a bench player now. He don't even start anymore.
Bro.
Yeah.
And they've gone through
multiple
offices too.
Bro, Sadiq Bey is starting over him, bro. That's crazy. Like, if you have 2 starting forward spots, bro, like, DeAndre Hunter and Jalen Johnson should be like a shooter. Somehow.
And Jalen Johnson's another guy. They got lucky he went through what he went through in college, because he was supposed to be a top 10 pick, and they got lucky he fell to them.
We need to talk about some teams that actually matter. I'm not gonna lie.
Please. So, did you have anything? Did you guys even have anything for series for the Bulls? Did you have anything, Devin?
I told you Caruso. The Hawks, I low-key wrote DeAndre Hunter because, like, why is bro a bench player?
I mean, DeAndre Hunter usually does have one game every playoff series where he just randomly drops.
He does
5+. I'm adding nothing more. We've given enough airtime to these dudes.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. I want to talk about Philly. I want to know what you guys think about Philly, because I got a guy.
Kelly. Got to be Kelly Oubre, man.
I don't have Kelly, but you can talk about Kelly if you want.
Got to be. I think he's another one of those guys who just fits the mold. It's going to be important for them defensively. Can get hot behind the line. Can attack the rim. There's a few other guys you can mention here. Maxi's a guy that came to mind, but I believe in what I've seen in him from the playoffs. I think that's going to be pretty consistent at this point. Can we see what we usually see from him in round 1 beyond round 1? That's the question, but I think Kelly Oubre is a guy that really has a lot of ceiling raising for them, especially on the offensive end. We know he can get hot. He's been shooting relatively well this year. I think he's a guy they're going to have to rely on outside of Embiid if he's back. But then most assuredly Maxey and Tobias. We kind of know what we're getting. I think Kelly could be that third guy who really could raise something for them if they need some big explosion on the offensive end.
Like it.
I don't got him though. I got a new face in town, and the sample size is small, but I had to go with Buddy Hield. He was really playing I think he was averaging his lowest points per game since like his New Orleans days this season, like during his stretch in Indiana. But he's come to Philly, and it's only been 8 games, and he hasn't played with Embiid, so that's kind of just going to be an outlier. But in those 8 games, like he's shooting 42% from 3 on 9 attempts, and that's for a Philly team that's bottom 5 in the league in attempts and makes, and they're bottom 10 in percentage. So this team needed shooting desperately. That's really one of their biggest flaws as a roster. So bringing in a shooter the quality of Buddy Hield is going to be valuable for them. He looks a lot better. I think he's up to like 16 point something. The only like real thing is just going to be, what is it going to look like when Embiid comes back? I'm sure like the volume will go down because we know Embiid's just going to take up so many of the touches. But I think a player of his caliber next to Embiid, not going to say it's the same level, but maybe a mini version of those JJ Redick dribble handoffs. If they can run some of those actions, I'm sure Embiid knows how to do his part still.
It could be just as good, to be honest.
That could be a really valuable action for them to run. So like I really think he could introduce a lot of really good things into that team that they desperately need. It's just I was trying to look up stats about it, and I'm like, oh, what's Buddy Hield's like? What's the Sixers' offensive rating since getting him? And it's trash. It's like 111 when they're usually like 115. But like, bro, you have the MVP off the floor. Like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah,
their offense has got worse while they're there, but.
Yeah. For context, their offense the last 2 weeks in terms of offensive rating is 103.9. So they are better with Buddy on the floor. Yeah. They've just been really bad the last little bit with Embiid off the floor, which is understandable.
Yeah. Like Embiid's the obvious, like, God, he got to be healthy. Like, if he's not in the playoffs,
he's an X factor.
He is, but since you guys gave a player, I'm not going to be lazy. Tobias Harris would be that next guy for me, though. Dev kind of alluded to him. He started off really hot, streaking a little bit lately. I know in the game last night, Sixers fans were like really complaining, and he's been struggling a little bit recently. But if you can get back to how he was shooting like those first couple months of the season, him being like a third option, and like you said, Dev, like if Kelly Oubre's elevated, like some nights might be a fourth option. That's big time. If he can, because his shot making ability is above average for somebody that is in his role as like a third guy, sometimes a fourth guy. It's above average. It's well above average. So I think his defense has also like really gotten better over the course of his Philly tenure. I feel like he's become a better defender, like especially in one-on-one situations. So I feel like he's like an important guy, especially on the wing. He's going to be asked to be like a stopper for them. If they run into like a Boston, if they run into like Milwaukee, he might get a lot of like, Giannis assignments at times, or, there's a lot of different variety that he might have to do defensively too. But it's really the offensive game for me, because there's times where in the playoffs he can like kind of vanish and put up like 4 points. And I don't think they can afford that, especially with Joe's health right now. Even if Joe's back, how healthy will he actually be? That's like a question mark, to be honest. And I feel like Tobias is going to kind of have to get back to playing ball how he was a little earlier on in the season, because I think that can be a big swinging point for them in the series.
Tobias is weird for me because he's been on this team literally since 2019. And I feel like he's just never had that playoff run where he actually like jumps up and becomes the guy to win them a series. And so I feel like it's been a thing for years where it's like, oh yeah, if he can really step up. But I just feel like he just like never gets the job done. And maybe that's what they need to get over the hump. And maybe he probably just isn't that guy, but it's like, is that what they need to get over the hump? Because this is a team that's desperately needed to get over that hump, but their construction's also changed so many times. Like now you're looking at a Nick Nurse defense instead of like
Doc Rivers, whatever.
Instead of like look at Doc Rivers on the Bucks. It's a mess right now, but he might be their X factor. I didn't write it down, but like Tobias just has never really just had that breakout that we've been talking about forever. But maybe Nick Nurse can unlock that. This might be his last chance to even be in consideration.
I think it's definitely his last chance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, let's be real. If he doesn't have a good playoff run this year, they might be looking other directions. He's done at the end of the year, so definitely could be his last chance. Side note: while I was looking at the Philly offensive rating the last 2 weeks, Brooklyn's offensive rating the last 2 weeks is 90.8.
Whoa!
Sorry, Brooklyn fans, but that's such an absurdity. It had to be mentioned. 90.
Guess what the 2012 Bobcats was. It's like 95.2 or something like that.
That's absurd.
crazy.
That's like
That's
some of the worst.
man.
They're playing like
All sample
2001
size, but, like,
out
man.
there.
Bro, they didn't even get the new coach boost, man. Like they're nerfed, man. They just suck. They're bad.
Yeah, Charlotte were 95.1 that year. This is worse than the Bobcats. And any stretch of games that is more than one, it's bad.
2 weeks of
Right, it's
basketball.
It's low-key weird to me that Tobias Harris is really only 31 years old. I really feel like he's been in the NBA for like so long.
I was looking at a player's profile the other day. I forget who it was. It might not even have been basketball, but I was just like, bro, there's no way that this guy's not 30 yet. I forget who it was, but I was like so shocked. I'm like, bro, he just gives vibes like he's 37, but he's like 28 or some shit like that. I forget who it was.
It's gonna be 2030, and we're gonna be saying the same shit about Tobias. It's like, dude is really still in the league. It's gonna be a little decade.
Like Luka's still gonna be on like 25 under 25 list in like 2030, bro. Like he's gonna have that Devin Booker about it,
bro. Like Tatum turns 26, like in a couple weeks. And I'm like, I low-key thought he was like 27 or something like that, 28.
Yeah,
he's been around forever. Looking at Tobias Harris playoff averages, he's literally, including back in Detroit, he's been between 14 to 15 points per game in every playoff run except two, which was 2021 and 2022. 2021 was his really good year where he was averaging 22. Like, he was really good. And then in 21-22, 16.9. And the 2021 year where he did the best was the closest they probably came with that just pivotal Hawks game 7. So maybe you're onto something. Maybe they need a 22 point per game for Tobias Harris.
He was really good in that Wizards series that year. He had like a big 30-point game against them. I think Joe got hurt that series too, if I'm not mistaken. So
dude, I forgot.
Yeah,
that that's the Russell Westbrook Wizards, right?
Yep.
That's right.
Where Rui Hachimura had a good playoff series.
Yeah.
Russ had like the stinkiest efficiency triple-double ever. Yeah. What a time. That was another weird time in the NBA. I feel like I was thinking of Andre Drummond. I don't even know if he's like 30 yet. He might be 30.
He must be.
He might have just turned 30. He's 30. Yeah, he's 30 right now.
30, yeah. It's crazy. You would think he's older, but
like he just gives us like 35 vibes.
Stat they just showed on the Laker broadcast. LeBron has played against 10 different father-son duos. That's absurd.
That is crazy.
This is a stupid stat night, bro. Earlier they said Luka Doncic put up the first 30-point birthday triple-double. I'm like, okay. What does this mean?
Slow night for stats, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Raptors broadcast always be doing that, though, because they'll always have Scotty with a couple of other Hall of Famers or a couple of other active high-tier superstars with some crazy stat lines. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Is Scotty going to be the next Magic? Probably not. But, the broadcast is trying to cook. I'll let them have it.
Let them cook, man. Let them cook.
Bro, some of the stats, that's like, bro, I like when people were like, bro, Wemby's going to do to the 5x5 what Russ did to the triple-double. I'm like, dog.
I mean,
that picked up a lot of steam, so.
Yeah, he averages 1.3 steals. He's not averaging a 5x5.
He's not averaging it, but in terms of scale of how Russ completely obliterated the record and just averaged it or did it way more than anyone else did, I wouldn't doubt it in that sense. I doubt he's going to average it, but in the sense that like no one has, he'll probably record way more than anyone else has. Like, I know Karolinko's got a few, Hakeem has got quite a few, but I think it's like 6 or 7 by someone. I don't remember who it was exactly. It might have been Hakeem, but I don't remember.
I think Dream got 6.
Yeah, but like I'd be surprised if Wemby doesn't do it like 10 times at least.
Bro, only like 18 players have done it. Like,
yeah, it is rare. Like if Wemby does it 15 to 20 times, he's probably obliterated the record in a similar way Russ did, which is crazy. But it's just
I think people meant it. I think people meant it in that sense because before Russ was getting hella triple doubles like that, like the league leader would be like 6 triple doubles any given season.
Exactly.
Like
So I
Lance
just
led the
looked it
league in triple
up.
doubles 1 year.
Only 2 players have done it multiple times. There's been 22 5x5s in history. Hakeem has 6, so that's the record. And then AK-47 did it 3 times.
Machine.
So if
They've obviously got
Wimby
more.
if Wimby gets 1 more, he'd be 3rd all time, and then he'd be tied for 2nd if he got 3. So to have 1 in his first year, that's pretty good.
And he almost had like 3 in like a week stretch.
Yeah. Yeah, the fact he was that close that much is crazy. It's crazy.
Why are we talking about Wimby? We're talking about playoff teams.
What Russ did?
Wimby
what Russ did
crazers.
was crazy.
Bro,
Hey,
is he
top 10, Reek?
Russ, I feel like Russ, like he's still under 200 triple doubles. He hasn't had a triple double in like 2 years, man. It's been a long time since Russ has had a triple double.
Washed.
I miss the stat pattern, Russ, man. Chasing
He
those
used to go at
rebounds.
James Harden. He used to go at James Harden. He was on James Harden's team, bro. Washed.
Yeah.
He's been riding Paul George's coattails since 2017.
Jokic is gonna catch Russ in triple doubles in probably like 4 years.
Jokic, bro.
Probably.
Luka's gonna probably catch it even quicker. Honestly,
I don't know, man. Jokic is like 75 behind.
Yeah. Jokic will probably catch him quicker, but Luka will probably catch him. Sabonis might catch him too eventually.
I think Jokic took a little bit to get there though, to where he was really at that level. Like Jokic did not come into the league as hot as Luka did. Like Luka was an all-star at the stage in his career where like Jokic was still being benched for Yusuf Nurkic. Like
Another
Luka
member
really
of the 5x5
started doing
stat
this.
line, by the way.
Luka really started doing this so early that he'll probably finish with the record.
It's not a shame, but it's like unfortunate that Luka doesn't want to play until he's like 40 something. Like he might retire when he's like 34. Be like, I've had enough.
I'm good. He'll probably have made $1 billion in contracts by then. Like, yeah, I'm good.
Probably first team NBA every single season or something like that.
Yeah.
We gotta talk about some X factors, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's go to the Knicks. Julius Randle is my guy.
Yep.
That's my guy too.
Didn't have to think about that one.
Look, we
Gotta
said
be
last
Randle.
week, if he stinks, this team could probably get bounced in the first round. If he's great, they can make a conference finals. Potentially NBA finals.
They're probably getting Philly or Miami round 1. So yeah, they need him to play good.
Yeah, I'm saying, man. What the hell? Anyways, yeah, I'm saying. his play really like
Boston Chapman. That's crazy.
Yeah, so somebody banned them. Anyways,
Somebody. I wonder who that's gonna be. Yeah, mods, go ban him real quick.
You got 2 options, bro.
we need some mods, man. We need some mods.
We have 3.
But meals to work.
Man, where's Mills at? Anyways, Julius is probably like the most obvious one on this entire list, to be honest. Like, if he stinks like how he kind of has the last couple times, could be a first round exit. If he's all NBA Julius Randle, they could make a really deep playoff run. It's really as simple as that.
I got nothing to
They're
add.
not going to, because they've been trash ever since starting the podcast.
Man.
I'll wait for them to get healthy.
Yeah.
I'll give them some time.
I think Randall's trending towards being back soon. They said Mitchell Robinson could be ready early March. OG, hopefully he's back sometime soon because they were playing great when he was out there.
Hopefully so. I might be watching them boys sometime in March, so hopefully they're healthy.
Let's hope so.
Who y'all got for the Heat? Because I know who I got.
Glad you said Miami Heat. I
got my. Me too. Let's go,
bro. All right, you got Duncan.
I do not have Duncan. I just got everyone needs to keep shooting. That's what they needed last year. They needed all them role players to keep shooting, and then as soon as they stopped shooting well, it was over.
Since Gabe got Duncan, I'll say Terry because I wrote him down too. He's been kind of like stinky when he was on the court for Miami. So they need him to be just somebody that you can look to really create on the perimeter, because even in the run last year, I mean, Hero was out, so it was really Jimmy creating mostly everything. Outside of like the spurts where like Duncan could create or Caleb Martin was doing some secondary shot creation. But if you have Hero, you have Terry, that's more shot creation than what you really even need from what we've seen from this team. So hopefully Terry can get back to obviously not what he was doing in Charlotte, because that was an anomaly stretch of basketball for him. But, just being, Terry Rozier, what we know that he can do as a shot creator for them.
Yeah, I got Duncan just because I feel like last year it was a lot about just everybody just starting to heat up with the shooting at the same time. But I feel like Duncan specifically has become a lot more dynamic in terms of like just watching last year's playoff series, and it even shows in the stats that like the way he can do off cuts now, and even like sometimes even being able to blow by and get some drives in there. Like he's averaging a career high in twos this year. He's become a lot more than just the spot up catch and shoot guy. And for a team that can struggle with offense very often, like that's very valuable. So if that continues to translate and he continues to be more of a dynamic player, that could just continue to open up their offense, and especially the ways the space. Even becoming more dynamic, he can still shoot the skin off the rock. So
I like the Duncan shout. He's definitely improved and become a lot more versatile on offense the last 12 to 16 months or so. Side note, seems relevant after we talked about Andre Drummond for like a minute more than we should have. 25 boards tonight and 9 offensive rebounds. Dude,
monster.
Give that in the play-in. just maybe. I mean, they lost tonight, but
I took it serious.
My bad. They did win tonight.
I took it serious, man. I just had to think about it because they're so bad.
And the Cavs stink, bro. I'm out on the Cavs.
Who's the X factor? Who's gonna make them not stink?
Evan Mobley having fucking offense.
That would be better.
That's your guy.
I wrote Evan Mobley just because, like, to be honest, I think that it's between Mobley and Garland. Like Mitchell, if he doesn't come out swinging, they're gonna lose. Like they don't got a chance. And there's like he definitely has struggled in the playoffs, but he's also been really good. So you could have argument for him, but I don't like to go with the team's best player, even if he's been up and down. Jared Allen, I don't think has a high enough ceiling of what he can do to be put in that position. So to me, it was really Garland or Mobley, and I think Mobley has a lot more to do on both ends. Like Garland's going to be his offense. Is the shot falling? Like, is he making the correct passes? Because he's been really poor in postseason appearances so far, both play-in and playoffs. But Evan Mobley, what happened last year, just getting completely bullied on the boards, like really not doing much on the defensive end, and still like just not being very productive at all on offense. Just the no bag, as people say. He just because what was kind of a complete net negative, almost a net zero out there. So I mean, he's really gonna have to show out and show up, and he's probably gonna have to be their main front court contributor, especially inside the arc. Because I mean, you could have guys like Max Strus out there, but it's mainly gonna be somebody who's outside on the perimeter. So as far as the inside presence, they're really gonna need somebody to be in that role.
That's fair. Do you kind of like tie Jared Allen into that too, though?
Yes, but I think that Evan Mobley has a much higher ceiling, so that's why I put him as more of the X factor.
Do you think that's a higher ceiling for this year, though?
Maybe not, because Evan Mobley hasn't developed that dynamic of an offensive game yet. It's just the fact that I know that Jared Allen is probably never going to be more than a lob catcher, dump off pass kind of guy.
I think the biggest thing
is
Allen. Yeah, I mean, even tonight Mobley dropped 25. Like that's just not something you're going to get from Allen ever at any point. Allen just needs to make sure he has the right tint on his shades coming into this series, so the lights aren't too bright again. And other than that, we're good on Allen's part. But yeah. I like the Mobley shout. Generally speaking, for them, I just said shooting because again, it was the biggest problem last year was they just had no spacing and no shooting whatsoever. So it was really tough for Mitchell to operate, really tough for Garland to operate. And obviously those guys got to show up, but someone there are a few guys ideally on this team have got to make it a little bit easier for them. Hopefully it's a guy like Mobley, Levert, Strus, Okoro, Dean Wade, or Niang, whoever gets the rotational minutes in the playoffs. Those guys got to allow Mitchell and Garland to actually operate to some extent, because otherwise they're just going to build a wall again, just like happened again to them last year in the postseason, and ultimately was their biggest demise. There was just no space whatsoever for Mitchell or Garland to operate, and no one else could hit a shot. So that's going to be the biggest thing for them. Mitchell and Garland can play as good as they want, but if teams can just wall up again and just continue to blitz and double these guys, they're not going to stand a chance.
I'll build off that point then for real, because I wrote 2 names down, but I mainly want to focus on Strus because he's on the wing. He's somebody that's been up and down this year shooting the ball. We obviously saw the explosion he had last night down the stretch, but up and down shooting year for his standards. But he's somebody has that playoff experience. He's held his own in the postseason, deep in the playoffs as a defender. I feel like that's something that didn't really get acknowledged enough by him in Miami. Like he would really be somebody that couldn't really pick on too much defensively, especially in like those conference final series. They would try and attack him, but he would hold his own against, Brown, Tatum, and whoever else was trying to attack him. So I feel like his shooting is something that's really important, but also his defense on that wing, because if he's going to get those minutes over Okoro, he still has to be able to hold his own defensively. And, if he's able to do that, I think that can maybe change a little bit of the dynamic from this team. And if he can get back to shooting the way that he, usually does, especially in the postseason. So hopefully he still has some of that heat magic, that heat voodoo left in him, because he's going to have to turn it up quickly in the postseason. She got bots all up in chat.
Like that's it.
We've made it.
That's really the stamp of approval. Got bots.
Apparently, we got the bots intrigued.
I'm interested to see who y'all have for Boston.
I thought this one was fairly obvious, to be completely honest. I think Derek White just serves that role so well.
Okay.
He might
have Derek White.
Really?
Yeah.
There's definitely arguments to be made for other guys, but I just feel like Derek White just serves that role of being like the versatile guy who can kind of do some of everything. And especially if he has one of those nights where he's like, I forget what series it was in, but I feel like he has some games last year where he just started shooting fucking crazy. And
I think that was the Atlanta series, where he was like,
yeah,
really off the ball.
And I think he had some of that in the final series against the Warriors too, where he just had like some insane shooting stretches. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that can really win you a game, especially like if the offense stalls out at all. Like he can really turn it on the defensive end. A lot of nights he's their best defensive player, and that's not a light statement talking about Boston's defensive personnel. So I think he just offers so much to them without being like the star guy that I thought he was almost a shoo-in for this position.
Okay.
That's fair. That was a name I considered here. Pritchard's a name I'd consider here as well. If I was picking a player, but I went more with a concept here. Shot diet. And what I mean by that is, can they just not get stuck with living with the 3-ball night in, night out? Can they attack more? Can they get on some second actions, get some ball movement? Can they be willing to take the mid-range when it's there and not just continue to settle for the 3-ball? That's the biggest thing for me. If I'm picking a player, it's probably a Derek White or a Peyton Pritchard. I think those guys could raise the ceiling for them to some extent, but that's the biggest thing for me that can really change their playoffs is, can they have a free-flowing offense that just takes what's available, or are they going to get stuck with the 3-ball and just really fall in love with it, which has been something we've seen in the past and has been an issue for them in the postseason.
Both are great points. I went with Porzingis, being that he was the big piece coming in this offseason. Everybody talks about he's what makes JJ Redick says all the time. He's what makes this team different this year. And I just hope that he continues to exploit those mismatches, how he has been mostly this season in the post. He's like, I guess, the best post player of all time, according to like stats and stuff, like points per possession and everything. Continue to do that, holding up defensively. But this kind of ties into like the shot diet too, and mainly late game shot diet. he has to be involved in that offense late games, I think, for this team to be successful. That's the only way that you can create real cross matches with Brown, Tatum. And he's just probably the most, like, honestly effective player for this team inside the arc. And I feel like he's somebody that should see the ball, or at least just, like I said, be involved in the action more down the stretch. And that they're very synonymous, the Celtics are, with like the Timberwolves to me. As far as late game offense go, I could have just said that. But I think KP is something that kind of ties everything together. And, we also haven't seen him in the postseason in quite some time, too. It's been a while for him. So, just hopefully he's still on his P's and Q's once we get to the playoffs, because if he's bad, like, I think that just kind of defeats the entire purpose of, what he's been providing this season. So to me, that was the player, but Derek White's a good shot because of what he does. The shot diet as a whole, not even just late in games, is definitely something that's a concern, because this team lives and dies by the three most nights.
No, you talked about how you watched that Nuggets game and it stole your joy for the Celtics. So clearly that gave you some negative vibes. Was that mainly based, because I didn't watch that game, was it mainly based around the shot diet or the late game offense, or kind of what was your viewpoint there that made you so questionable about the Celtics?
Kind of both. Like, if I remember that game correctly, Brown was bad, Tatum wasn't great either. They both took a lot of threes and they made two between them. And even when they were up like 10 points in late second or something like that. They were just possessions where they would even get multiple opportunities, but like Devin said, just continue to try and, fire up 3-point shots, and they weren't falling. And it's it's been better recently, but where's the balance between knowing, if it's not our night shooting the 3-point shot, we don't got to take 45 threes. We can dial it back. We have the personnel to where we should be able to dial it back. You have tough shot makers. You have a guy in KP that exploits mismatches. You have two really good guards at getting to the rim, and you have all the personnel to not be the Houston Rockets and just chuck up 53s a game. So that's kind of where it was. And then late in game, it was like Tatum wasn't getting to the bucket, Jaylen Brown wasn't getting to the bucket, and they were just settling for really tough shots. Now Denver, excellent defensive team, when it gets to those moments, but it's a little bit of everything. Everything we just talked about, it was all in the one game. And when it's against the defending champs, it just kind of raises your eyebrows a little more than if it was against, the Indiana Pacers or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the team you got to go through to reach the mountaintops. So, yeah, when talking about an X factor was going to get them over the hump, that was big time.
And KP was not – he was never involved in it. They sat him in the corner in that game. That's how they were, treating him down the stretch. It's just weird how they operate sometimes in those late games.
They have a great mid-range personnel, too. So that's kind of weird. I really feel like truly any, real contender, any top of the league, I feel like they all usually have a pretty good mid-range game. As much as, the league likes to emphasize, the threes and layups, I feel like the truly great teams are the ones that have, that good in-between game to just really open up their ability to get a shot anywhere on the court. And it's just – it does so much.
You're not living and dying by it, but you need to have it. It can't be non-existent. It can't be we go back to the Rockets where it's just a bunch of threes and layups. You need a balance. You don't want to be the guys like DeMar or LaMarcus Aldridge where you live in the mid-range ideally in today's game, but as a team, you need something. If it's there, when it's there, you need to be able to hit it. And if you can't, or if you just refuse to shoot them, it does become an issue.
Yeah, that's what really unlocked the Warriors. That's what made them a dynasty when they got Kevin, because he's one of the best mid-range guys. And it's not he's shooting 20 a game with them, but it's look, we need a bucket. We know Kevin is going to get to a spot in the mid-range. He's going to get a really good look. So, yeah, that's a great point, Gabe. All championship teams typically have that, at least one guy that can create shots in the mid-range.
I think of that Phoenix Finals run. Devin Booker and Chris Paul, a lot of mid-range work.
Even Ayton was a mid-range killer. He took all his shots in the mid-range. Yeah, and even on the other side, the Bucks, Chris Middleton, pretty good mid-range guy.
Can we talk about Chris Middleton? Because that's my guy for the Bucks.
That was a segue I didn't even intend, but yeah, let's talk about Chris Middleton.
Yeah, we need to talk about Chris Middleton because to me he is such an X factor for them. just because I know what he's capable of. Like the fact that this team won a title with him as their second guy, he's pretty significantly regressed as far as regular season production, but he still low-key brought it last year in the playoffs. So I think he still has some of that in there, especially this year, having the responsibility to be the number 3 guy instead of the number 2 guy. We've seen him be a clutch shot maker plenty of times, and he's playing alongside one of the clutchest shooters in the game. So you think that gives the Bucks a lot of dangerous options late in games. And especially if you're trying to take care of both of those guys, you could leave Giannis with like a wide open lane or some sort of way to score. So I feel like he can open them up a lot because we know how good he's been for them. And especially even if he's regressed, like you got to think, if you just need like a game or two for Chris Middleton to really pop off, those guys have enough experience together to where he can run some actions with Giannis, with Brook, and he can really get it going for a couple games. I believe he has it in him, so he's my X factor for them. But I also did consider Brook Lopez because he's had a weird season.
Yeah, I like the
Middleton's a pretty good shot.
I like that. He's had a weird year because the efficiency's been good, but then obviously he's still dealt with injury. He's out right now. Hopefully he's back soon. But then it's the combination of the minutes restriction earlier in the year, the combination of Dame now being in town and him having to take a step back to being the third option. So obviously the volume is dialed back a lot. It's not been as consistent, which is the biggest concern, but the fact that he's been so efficient, the biggest thing for me is just, is he on the floor? As far as on-court performance, he probably still is their X factor because there's so much fluctuation with how good he could be, assuming that he can get back up to 33, 35 minutes a night in a postseason setting, which is something we just haven't seen in quite a few years now at this point. And then the biggest thing outside of that is, crazy it is to say, can Dame start shooting better? And I didn't think I'd have two of their best 3 players as their potential X factors, but that's where I'm kind of at with this team right now. Role player shooting is going to be an issue. Can Brook Lopez shoot? Can Malik Beasley continue to shoot well? Can Pat Connaughton figure out his 3-point shot at all? He's really struggled this year, but ultimately, based on what I've seen from Dame and Middleton this year, that's my biggest sticking points. And Dame especially, if Middleton is where he's at, if he's not going to be able to play as many minutes, if he is, as he's seemingly taken this year, accepted this third option on offense, Dame has to show up way more. And without that, I mean, Giannis is great, but as we saw when they won the title, he needs a really good number 2 who can hit shots in the clutch from the perimeter. Middleton was that. I don't know if he's going to be that again this time around, but that's what they brought Dame in for, and Dame needs to show up and start doing it. So far, just hasn't been enough for it.
It's crazy. And it's like you just want to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially like Dame. But he's been struggling all year and hasn't really found a stride yet. And you just wonder, like, is it just all of a sudden going to click once we get to April? I don't know. I don't know. He's getting older.
Dude, it's crazy for Dame.
Situation.
Like, when Dame got traded, I was really on, like, this is going to be the easiest transition period of all time. Because putting a player like Dame next to a player like Giannis should be just so simple in theory. Like one of the best shooters in basketball, especially off the dribble, putting him next to one of the biggest, like, best rim pressures that we've ever seen, especially in the past 10, 15 years. That seems so free, but it's not.
It's weird too, because like I never noticed. I don't know if Dame's always done this, but I feel like he just like, I don't want to say foul bait, but that's what it seems like he does now. Like, so he don't even really try to make shots. He's just trying to get to the free throw line as much as he can, which I understand if you're struggling, that's fine. But I feel like he's been doing that like all year. And I'm just like, that's just not Dame. Like, that just doesn't seem like that's how Dame's ever really been, like, all the time. It's just been a weird year for him. Kind of reminds me of the year he was hurt a couple years ago, but obviously not as bad, but it's kind of similar to that in a way.
So he had one of his best years last year too. Like,
it was amazing last year until they shut him down. But I wrote down, and Dev mentioned Pat Connaughton shooting. Him, Jay Crowder, the wings. Seems like Andre Jackson is not even going to be in the rotation. So I went with those two guys because they're probably going to be the wings that will be on the floor a lot. And as bad as it is, they're going to be the guys that's asked to chase around other teams' best players. And, that's a tough task because Jay Crowder's been always a quality defender, above average defender. Pat Connaughton, I think, has also been a quality defender too. But you're asking those guys to go from just sparingly guard people to shit. If we play Boston, I mean, Jay, you're chasing. You got Tatum, and then you might have Brown, and then Pat. When you come in, you're going to have one of those two, and asking them to do that and keep up, shooting the 3-point shot in the playoffs, because that's been one of their downfalls over the last couple seasons. Is, like you said, their role players not shooting the 3-point shot well. That's a tall task. It's a tall task, but it's like they have to be those guys, because unless you're playing Patrick Beverley 30 minutes, I don't want to sacrifice that for Malik Beasley's potential shooting. Look, it's a tough task for them, but that's why they're their X factors, because if they can handle that workload, it might bode well for the Bucks in the postseason. But if not, man, Pat Chinatown is crazy.
Always count on Garrett to come in and give a crazy name to a guy we were immediately somewhat talking down on.
I low-key forgot he was on the team until I watched him play the Timberwolves. I'm like, oh, they do have Pat Connaughton. I haven't heard shit from him all year, but they do have Pat Connaughton. He is on that team.
Bro, you said Jay Crowder. Dude, Jay Crowder be on so many different teams. I forget what jersey he's even in half the time.
I kid you not. I low-key forgot he was on the team, too.
Yeah,
bro,
he was out for
there's so many guys.
But, yeah, and the obvious caveat is Glenn Rivers, man. Like, you don't know what you're getting from bro as a head coach in the postseason, especially with the tour he's been on recently.
I was wondering if he was going to get brought up. And my counter argument to anything that was going to get brought up with him was like, is he an X factor or is he just a concern? I don't think there's any ceiling raising with Doc. It's just, it could be okay, or it might be really bad.
That's real, man.
I don't think there's an X factor there. There might be an L factor if that's a thing. Maybe we're gonna.
I think he's a liability. He's a liability.
There's no X factor in that, man.
He's an L factor.
He's like how we were saying about Sabonis and a couple other guys. Like, we expect him to be bad. Like, let's just be honest.
You guys remember my off-season rants about the coaching merry-go-round about how the same guys get jobs?
Yes.
Bro, the Bucks really did it. Can I say the Nick Nurse coaching tree, bro, it might just be ass.
Chris Finch is trying to carry it by himself, man. He's
Chris,
the only hope left.
Chris Finch has his moments. Like, Nate Bjorken was not doing it. Like, Griffin was literally out of there. And like
Jerry Stackhouse didn't even get Stackhouse was coaching the G League team, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was our G League coach for a bit.
I'll count him then. He didn't even get a head coaching offer. I think he's coaching high school basketball now.
Yeah, it's been tough going for them boys for sure.
I feel like most coaching trees kind of suck though. I'm gonna be honest. You can point at a lot of bad.
I usually think of like football.
Pop might have the best. Pop might have the best. He got Bud, which say what you want about Bud. Bud is probably above average head coach.
Steve Kerr too. He catches flag now.
Kerr, Ime. Shit, that right there is dang near better than most coaches.
Yeah, I just always think of like so many football coaching trees. Like any guy who you hire off Belichick's trash, always trash.
The McVay Shanahan tree has been the best.
Yeah, that one's actually good. Like, can't think of a ton of guys who were great off like the Andy Reid tree in college. The Nick Saban tree, bro. Until Kirby Smart came out, bro, it was looking
awful.
Great.
Yeah, coaching trees I don't know if there's not many good ones like across those two sports, to be honest. Like Pop had Jock Vaughn. I mean,
Nate Bjorken was a travesty to the NBA. That's the guy whose team employed Jim Boylan too. Their team employed Jim Boylan for like 2 years.
Also from the Pop tree.
That's terrible.
That's a big stain. That is a very big
Definitely a
stain.
tough
But
one.
gosh, yeah, Borkin, yeah,
Yeah.
Who we
terrible
got
call.
left? We only got Orlando and Indiana left, don't we?
Really?
you.
Dang, we flew through the East, and we've been talking like nonsense half the time. Like, for the Magic, I just said their guards. I was lazy.
That's fair.
That's fair. That is
That's
fair.
really fair.
I didn't have anything great for them either. I honestly said Paolo because I genuinely don't think anyone else on this team, other than Franz, has enough to elevate to do any bit of difference for them. So I think unless Paolo's dropping like 27, 30 plus a night, they ain't doing nothing. So
Yeah, that's fair. I just went with their guards because you know nobody's really like consistently been great for them. So maybe if they get, I don't know, one random good game from Anthony Black or Markel has a good game or Cole Anthony comes off the bench and maybe impacts a series or something like that. But other than that, yeah, Gary Harris is a good one too. I thought about him, but
yeah,
that point guard play has been kind of a wild card all year for them.
Yeah, all those guys as a unit is definitely the key. I went with Mo Wagner because he just be having some absurd scoring nights, and I was really thinking like that's the kind of shit that could get you a game in the playoffs. So I mean, for a team who's looking to
Mo Wagner game.
to a team who's probably like looking to scratch and claw, like a team who real good chance they're in the play in. I mean, they might make it just above because like Philly could continue falling with no Embiid.
Possible.
And then I don't know if Miami stays this hot. So it's really close. But if they end up in the play-in, it might be a Mo Wagner game that gets them out.
He'd be having like games of like 23 points and have like one rebound.
Dude, he'll have like 17 points in like 23 minutes. It's like stupid.
He's hilarious.
Like if he's off, he probably ain't even in the game for more than 15 minutes. But if he's on, whew,
he's like
the opposite, bro. He's the opposite of like the Thanasis shit, bro. Like he's on his brother's team, but he's actually nice.
He can actually hoop. Ro's a first round pick too, man. Like Mo's actually good.
He just ain't as good as his brother.
Oh no. Little brother's always usually better, to be honest.
Well, LaMelo's like an all-star, and Lonzo hasn't played basketball since January 2022. So
Steph was better than Seth, though, so that's good.
True.
I think Giannis is a little brother. Thanasis is the older bro, so checks out there. I don't know which one of the Morris twins is older, but
I don't know. Was Blake Griffin's brother older or younger?
Older. Wait, ooh. I think older. I want to say older.
Same with didn't J.R. Smith have a brother in the league too?
He did. I forget his name, but he did.
If Blake and J.R. were both younger brothers, you might really be onto something.
I think Drew's older.
I don't know the order of
I think so.
I don't know the order of like the Plumlees, but the best one is definitely Mason. Marshall and Miles were.
I don't know.
Whichever Zeller's younger.
I think of all of them as old, so I want to say Mason, but
it actually might have been Mason Plumlee. Mason Plumlee might have been the player I was thinking about that like seems older than what he actually is.
Pau Gasol's the better Gasol.
Yeah,
he's the older one. Brooke is
the Zellers
older, Brooke or Robin?
Robin.
They're twins. They're twins,
right?
Aren't they?
Twins?
Maybe Robin came in a few minutes earlier. I don't
know. To the Zeller point, they had an older Zeller brother in the league before Cody. So
the Tyler Zeller, right?
Tyler, I think they had another one too. Luke Zeller. I think he made it to the league.
Luke Zeller, 1 year, 2013. Yeah, played 16 games with the Suns.
Dude, I had no idea they were twins. That's crazy.
The real question we want to know is, Van Arsdale brothers. I'm gonna go Tom. Tom just breeds greatness, man. You got Tom Brady. See Tom Hanks. Any other NBA players named Tom?
Nothing I'm thinking of.
Thomas Bryant.
Tom Chambers.
Tom Chambers. Tommy DeVito.
Yeah.
Just name it. Just name it.
Right. Let's finish up the Pacers before we
Oh
get
yeah,
too crazy
Pacers. Aaron Neesmith. If you can
I
keep
knew you
him
were gonna, me and
skin
Devin
off the
talking
ball.
about.
It's my second straight Neesmith shout out. Aaron Neesmith, man.
Dude, I hopped in before you hopped in the call, bro. I was sitting here with Devin. I said, I feel like the Pacers had a couple guys. Aaron Neesmith's one of them, but I know Reek's gonna talk about him, so I'm gonna pick somebody else.
See, I was gonna say Ben Mathurin, but I assume you would talk about him, Gabe. So
Oh, you're so
There you
smart.
go, it
man.
works.
Because
Look
yeah,
at this chemistry.
look at this.
I got Ben Mathurin for the scoring explosion, bro.
He can have a game.
My brother's special, and
He can have a game.
he's that bench punch.
Is he still coming off the bench?
For the most part, I believe so.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I think
Newhart's been starting the last little bit. Yeah, they've been rocking a few different combinations since Buddy's been out of town. With Buddy,
Yeah,
and
he's
Bruce
only Mathurin's only started 18 games this year.
Oh, okay.
Out of
guessing
55
Dev's-
played.
I'm guessing Dev's gonna say Jalen Smith.
I was thinking a lot of different ways here. I didn't actually end up deciding on a player. I've decided on a few different things, one of which is wings, just in general, Naismith and the collection of the guys. They're going to need defense, most importantly, from those guys, and I don't know how good a defense they're going to get to be able to keep them competitive enough in the postseason, but that's one concern I have for them and how much they could raise their ceiling. The other thing I wanted to bring up is also primarily off of their wings, but also Newhart's going to have to come into the equation, is how good their shooting and spacing is going to be. Their offense is still good, but they've taken a drastic fall off with Buddy off the team. I think the value of Buddy even still is undervalued because even if he's having an off shooting night, his defender is just attached at the hip to him. You can't leave him open. The spacing he provides is just absurd. And although they still have some good shooters on this team, I mean, Newhart's fine from three. Naismith's been shooting the three well. Mathurin is a fine three-point shooter. They're still good from behind the arc, but they don't even have someone else who's an off-ball guy in the wing who I'd consider a great three-point shooter. Never mind someone who's anywhere near as good as Buddy. So they've had a lot of different adjustments to their offense that they're making and going to have to continue to make. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on for them is how good their shooting is off ball and what type of spacing they get. I think that could be a big swing for them because if they're going to win in the postseason, wing defense sure is something to look out at and something they're going to have swing in their direction to win. But ultimately, they're going to have to outscore teams. That's the only way the Pacers are going to do anything. So that's the biggest thing that I want to look at is what do they look like without Buddy? How do they continue to adjust? And can that offense continue to be one of the top few offenses in the league? Or is it going to be like it's been over the last couple of weeks where it's like 10th, 11th in offensive rating, which is still good. But for this Indiana team, it's nowhere near good enough for them to be competitive.
Yeah, they were like historically good for a decent stretch of the season. So good point. That's why Aaron Neesmith plays into that too, but among other guys. But yeah, I kind of noticed that too, like how their shooting's kind of it just seems depleted without Buddy Hield. And maybe that's just a testament to how great of a shooter he is and really how underrated of a player he is. But yeah, interesting team. I think they'll be a fun first round matchup though, no matter who they play, because they should still score a decent amount of points even in a playoff setting.
Pascal's volume isn't crazy, but he's a 41% three-point shooter over there right now.
I feel like he just never shoots threes though. Once it gets to like the playoffs,
he's at 3 attempts for them right now, which isn't horrible, but I mean, like definitely not a ton.
It's his lowest volume since 2019, so tied with 22. But it's definitely a point of consideration for sure. And
Him
yeah, he's
Mather's really going down that bench though. Like
never shot.
he's
well
only
from
started
three in the
18.
postseason.
Mather started 18 games, which is literally less than Nimhard, less than Obi, less than Neesmith. Like almost everybody's started more games than him except Jalen Smith, and that's only by 5.
You know who they could have had? Trey Murphy the third. They drafted Chris Duarte.
And that looked like a good decision at first. Duarte was good.
Yeah, for like 40
That
games.
first month.
And now he's like just hanging out on a bench in Sacramento. Like,
Yeah, he's gonna make it tough for another like 25-year-old to get selected in the lottery again. He was old as hell when he got drafted.
yeah, he was. Yeah, that was a weird one. I remember everyone was talking about him going to Golden State. It's like, if they could have got him, he probably would have played more than Moody has.
I really need to figure out like what Moody did to Steve Kerr. Did he insult somebody in his family? What happened? I need to know, bro, because it took like 5 guys being out of the rotation for him to be like, okay, we got to start Moody tonight. Like, what? I don't get it,
dude. I hate to come back to the same thing again, but bro, Tobias Harris and Bogdan Bogdanović are the same age.
bro. And Tobias has been in the league for a long time, bro.
And Bogdanović came in late.
Like Gabe was like 3 years old when Tobias got drafted.
I kid you not. I think I was 9.
I think I was still in grade school. It was like what, 2012?
I was probably 9 because the draft is before my birthday. So I was in 2012. I would have been 9 when he got drafted. And now I have a college degree now, bro. Still hooping.
I think he was 6th grade.
Yeah, he was 2011.
I hope you realize, like, LeBron got drafted when I was like 9 months old, bro.
Definitely grade school.
LeBron got drafted when I was 9 months old, and this dude is still hooping. Like, that's absurd to think about.
I have a funny question: who's still playing? Who plays longer, LeBron or Jeff Green?
LeBron.
I think this is a very valid question, man.
It is a very valid question,
man. Jeff just won't go away,
man. It might be Jeff, especially if he wants to just take on the Haslam role for a couple of years and just be the vet. Like, man, he really might just hang out for another 4 or 5 years.
He really might, bro.
Nah, because like
being 2011 is crazy.
I don't know. Jeff might get to a point in like, I feel like 2 years from now, like Jeff Green at 39, he might still be on a roster as a vet, but I don't know if he'll play.
Oh, I'm not sure if he'll play much either, but
like LeBron in 2 years will play, which is crazy because LeBron's about that 40K points in like a week. Like that's crazy.
That's nuts. That's nuts. Like people talk about like they said Kareem's record was untouchable. Bron's really actually might be untouchable by the time he's done.
Well, because the players can't come in from high school anymore. So like just like you'd have to play until you're like super old, like super old.
And even the guy who's on pace, Lucas said he doesn't want to play that long.
Yeah.
He's not even really on pace. He'd have to play until he's like 43 or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's just gonna have to be such an absurd combination of factors. It's just so unlikely. Like no major injuries for the most part. Scoring out the gate, you're already losing a year, like you say, because you're at least doing a year before you enter the league post high school. Got to play an absurdly long time. Like it's so unlikely.
Honestly, too, like now these reports are coming out that they might like change up the rules soon to balance out the offense and defense a little bit more. If they make it harder to score again,
what realistically are they going to do, man?
I think removing defensive 3-second would definitely like contribute.
But, bro, that's such a major rule change, man.
I think if they found a way to actually change the foul baiting, like change it out of the rules, because we know like the way foul baiting is, it's technically following the rules, but I'm saying the game always changes over time. Like you got to like the offense has not increased in a linear direction. Like the
Players are
offensive
just better.
numbers but like offensive numbers in the 80s were way better than offensive numbers in the 90s and 2000s. Even though players were probably better in the 90s and 2000s than the 80s, it's just the way the game goes. Like, yeah, players get better, but players always get better, and that hasn't stopped offenses from dipping for certain eras. So, like, I think it's very much possible that it could change.
Yeah, it'll be tough because, like you say, Rick, like getting rid of defensive three in the key entirely, that'd be a massive change. That would completely revolutionize the game and what we see. I won't take full credit for it because I'm pretty sure Rusty Buckets mentioned it in one of his videos in the last month or two. But when he was talking about the explosion of offense, there was a discussion around maybe it's changed to a defensive 5 in the key or a defensive 8 in the key, something that does allow for bigs to still be in the paint more. It opens up more possibility with zone. Obviously, you still can't just have your bigs sitting in the paint the entire possession, but maybe it creates a little bit more of a balance. Of course, until we actually get that in practice, and Lord knows if we ever will, it's hard to say, but I feel like that's probably a bit of a more likely adjustment as opposed to just going from 3 in the key to nothing. That'd be a pretty drastic change. Not that I'm fully against it, because it's something different. I'm here for it, but
if you think about before, like defensive 3 in the key, there was a lot of non-shooters on the court back then. So when so much of the offense was closer to the rim, every team's best player was usually their big. Guys were just trying to drive in. Like, that's really what the game was. Having no, like, defensive 3 in the key, really, you could just sit there the whole possession. But now with so much more spacing, even a lot of the bigs can stretch out to at least the mid-range. Like, even if they don't have to leave the key, a lot of teams can force defensive bigs to leave the key. And if they don't, see the Clippers Jazz series that goes down like infamously.
Yeah.
Like a lot of teams can really punish that. So I think it'd be interesting. Like it could really put you in a position where you could have different schemes and make different sacrifices. And it's not like you could just have a guy sitting there the whole time, every time.
It's such a weird conversation because, people that grew up watching ball in the 90s, early 2000s, they just assume like defense is just non-existent in today's game. Like, no, players are more athletic than they ever have been, especially on the defensive side of the floor. It's just offense has gotten that much better, and the three-point shot has just evolved so much. Like back in like 2010, like no team was taking 30% of their shots from 3. Like the highest was like 28, and that was even like drastically big for that time. Nowadays, every team's taking 30% of their shots from 3. Like there's only a couple teams that are taking like 30 attempts, like exactly 30 attempts. So players being better from range than ever, players being better with the ball in their hands than ever before. The space that's already been created because of the 3-point shot. And like Gabe mentioned, pretty much everybody that plays big minutes can space the floor to some degree. Like more space equals more offense, which equals more points, but that doesn't mean like we have to do all this drastic stuff to change the game. That just means some things have to be like, evolved on the defensive side too. And I don't know like what rule changes, like eliminating 3 seconds in the key is just like crazy. That's like we said, that's a drastic change. Like maybe experimenting with like some 5, like you said, Dev, like that could maybe be a little different. But I've seen some crazy stuff. Like they talked about like eliminating like the corner 3 is like a possibility.
Yeah, I did see that.
Nuts.
I think that's a little absurd. I know the corner is like shorter, and there's a lot of guys who really their bread and butter is just shooting corner 3s, but that feels like a definitely even more drastic than eliminating 3 in the key. I do wonder, and it seemed like you were kind of mentioning it, like defense evolving. Like I feel like we keep saying, oh, like players keep getting better, but it's like, yeah, players keep getting better, but eventually maybe players just get better at defense. I don't know. As weird as it sounds to say, because like good offense beats good defense. Like maybe we're just waiting on like some fucking genius coach to come in and like really, really evolve defense and have it catch back up to offense.
Yeah, I was thinking like with offense, like that's more like players evolving, but defense is more schemes. Like that's what could really like revolutionize the game. I love what like Spoelstra and Miami's done. Like they run a lot, they run zone more than anybody, and it's a like a change of pace. It's like a change up pitch in baseball. Like it just catches people off guard. They don't practice for it mainly, so it's like the game kind of slows down a little bit. Stuff like that. Like if teams incorporated that more, Nick Nurse also did a really good job and has done a good job for years of being innovative defensively. It's just like not every coach does that. Like most teams, they'll be like, you know what, we're just gonna switch every screen, do this, do that. But there are some coaches like Spo, Nick Nurse, some other guys have done it too. Like just being different. Like let's throw up a matchup zone here. Let's throw in a 2-3, a high 2-3. Let's throw in a 1-3-1. Like just different stuff. I think that's where, like you said, Gabe, the evolvement of defense could come. But changing rules and stuff, that can get a little too finicky, and I think could maybe mess the game up even more.
Nurse is insane. He played a box and one of the NBA finals. Like
that's innovation, and it worked.
I don't know if it worked or not. I think the Warriors might have won that game. I think that might have been Iguodala. I thought that was the game where Steph had.
I thought that was the game where Steph had like 47, but y'all won.
Maybe. I feel like Clay missed. I feel like Clay missed the game and Iguodala had the game winner.
I thought that was the game Steph went off though, not with the game winner, but where Clay missed that game. You
might be right. I'll have to go back into the history books and check that.
But I think zones are good too, Mills. Like it's a change of pace. NBA players don't see that every game. So if you don't see something every game, as great as these guys are, it will take a little bit to adjust. It changes the pace of the game a little bit. And, there's only a select few coaches that actually run zone, more often than others for real.
I don't think rule changes are really that bad, though, because the rules have just always changed over time. I mean, you go from, like, the distance of the three-point line, like hand checking, 3 in the key, like all these different things. Zone defense used to be illegal. Like all these different things, like doing like guys couldn't be a roamer. Like you literally had to be just like on a man or it was illegal. Like rules have just changed so much over time that it's just kind of natural. Like usually every time the game evolves to a certain point, a rule gets changed. And I think especially in Adam Silver's NBA, they've been specifically more open to changing things. Now, a lot of that's exhibition based, like changing up All-Star Weekend. But I mean, some of the things like the play-in tournament, the in-season tournament, like that feels like a bigger change to the game than almost anything. Like I guess as far as the on-court product, like a rule change is one thing, but the play-in tournament changed basketball a lot.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. There hasn't been anything massive on court. Like, I mean, obviously there's been efforts with foul baiting. The rules inherently are fine. It's just whether they get called. That's a whole other discussion, or don't get called, I suppose. The biggest thing, and given this is probably 5-6 years ago now, or it might even be longer, is just offensive rebounds being a 14-second shot instead of a full 24 again. And that just upped the pace of the game even further than it's already been on the trajectory of over the last 10 years or so. But that's really the only massive one that I recall over at least the Adam Silver era.
Yeah, that's probably definitely the biggest rule change on court wise. I was a fan of that though, honestly, but maybe change. I might just be a fan of pace though. But I'm telling you, honestly, in my opinion, I've been watching basketball for like since I was 9 years old. I feel like the product is just like better. It's cleaner to watch. Like I love defense, but like if you go back and watch a game from the late 2000s, those games are clunky. They're nasty. Yes, the defense is great. Defense is great, but I mean, it's also just like bad offense. And it's not the best of both worlds. So it's like, I don't know. I just feel like it's hard to satisfy basketball fans because, we have a bunch of great offensive teams, and it's like, oh, there's too much offense. Nobody plays defense. I guarantee if they change and they eliminate 3 seconds in the key, everybody's gonna be like, oh my god, there's too many good defensive teams. Why would they make this rule change?
I
Rudy
think
Gobert just won his 15th straight depoy. Like, what are we doing?
like I think Rusty was talking about this in his video. It's just the way it is now incentivizes a lot of teams to play so similarly. And so that's kind of the biggest like detriment to the product is you can watch any NBA game and a lot of teams play damn near the exact same. Like heavy pick and roll, your lead scoring guard's probably going to try to bait a bunch of fouls. You know, like somebody has a pretty good chance to get a triple double. You're shooting a lot of threes. You're just trying to find the open man in the corner. It's a lot of similar things, driving kicks, but like back then, especially I think the 2010s was really good for this because even like the 2000s and 90s had a lot of teams that were really similar. But like the 2010s specifically, you look at a team like the grit and grind Grizzlies that were super successful at around the same time. Like the Grizzlies were kind of getting towards the end of it, but almost the same time as when the Warriors were just like sparking the 3-point revolution. At the same time, you have a team like OKC with like Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant just being more like a two-headed, ISO monster. At the same time as you have like James Harden kind of doing the start of his like super ball dominant heliocentric shtick. You got like LeBron out here kind of similar to that, but he had like Kyrie with him. So there was just a lot of teams of really different identities that were able to succeed all at the same time. Whereas now I think you do see a lot more of, I don't want to call it a meta because that kind of sounds like stat nerd reading a spreadsheet. But I do think there has been a lot of just like teams go to the same things because they know it's the most successful. So the product does not incentivize different methods of team building and play style.
I'm just like thinking of like all the teams from like late 2000s, early 2010s, like the Magic were revolutionary with their like 4 out, 1 in with the white. The Suns, like they had a different first 7 seconds or less than heavy pick and roll with Nash and Stoudemire. Jerry Sloan's offense was always heavy pick and roll. The Lakers play like a different brand with the triangle and stuff. That was just one of a kind. Then like Boston, they didn't run. They were mainly like, centered around their wings, floppy action, not a lot of pick and roll. Like so much. Like I'd never really thought about that, but there was a lot of variance back then. Now you look at teams, most teams are built all the same. They have, their guards. More so, they will want like at least a 6'4" point guard, maybe a longer 2 guard, and then they'll have, their power forward who's really a small forward, but he's playing power forward these days, and then hopefully a center that can block shots and stretch the floor a little bit. That's why it's kind of refreshing to see teams that like try and change the mold, like the Cavs a couple years ago when they had basically 3 7-footers. That was cool because it was different. And, the Timberwolves doing the Twin Towers. It's kind of cool because it's different and it's cool that they're winning games. So, but like most teams are, like you said, all built the same. I didn't even really think about it like that until now.
If you see like a shooting guard, like your point guard shoots a lot, you got a 3-and-D like wing, you got a big man who can protect the rim and space the floor, maybe a little bit only to the mid-range. A guy who's just like a defensive versatility guy is one of your forward spots. And then a guy who can get a couple buckets as like your other forward. Then I can be talking about 15 teams right now.
Real talk.
Yeah.
Real talk.
There's a crazy tangent. We didn't even plan to talk about this today, but
that's what I was gonna say, man. I love this podcast because that wasn't even on the agenda at all. But I don't even
feel like that was
exist, but hey,
that was
whatever happens, it just goes, man.
I think that was a well-formulated discussion that was completely off the cuff. That was for
that's one of the best. Segment. That's one of the best discussions I think we've ever had. I'm gonna be honest. I gotta acknowledge that. Gotta acknowledge that in the moment, man. But we got all.
But I do have these all-time starting fives ready.
Yes, sir. Let's
for the sake of
we'll get back to the agenda.
For the sake of TikTok editing. Do we want to each just like name our 5?
We could do that, or we could just go through position by position, and because like some we probably don't need to discuss much. We can just keep it short to the point. Like I'm sick. Like starting with the Grizzlies, I'm assuming we all have Marcus Gasol at center. I would hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Power forward, I'm hoping Zach Randolph, but maybe there's some other Gasol love.
No.
I put Zebo.
I got Powell. My lineup's kind of scuffed.
I put Powell at the 3.
Yeah, I put Randolph. I put Randolph.
Three bigs in my team.
I'm sorry, I put Powell at the 3, man.
I put Powell at the 4, Zebo at the 3, bro.
Still leave Powell off, man.
That is nasty, and I do not love it.
That team in their prime,
off, man.
Because hear me out, bro. This team in their prime, they were starting Tony Allen out there, so they basically had 3 non-shooters on the court.
Did somebody say Tony Allen?
That team, but bro, Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph play good with a non-shooter out there next to them.
Hey, so man, I'm just thinking about I can't if I'm doing all-time Grizzlies, I can't leave Powell off, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Powell's arguably the best player they've ever had on their roster.
That is valid. I just thought about I'm trying to keep an actual starting lineup. And Zebo or Powell have got to defend a 3. Not
that's
ideal.
Fair.
So I admitted Powell. My 3 is Rudy Gay.
Okay, that's.
Dude, I don't care about fit, bro. You're telling me Pau Gasol or Rudy Gay? That choice is easy.
At the 3, I'm taking Rudy Gay, especially in Grizzlies history.
That's crazy.
Powell was good, but
I don't know, man. Powell. This was like a mid 2000s team. I like it, man. Powell spacing to the mid range. Maybe occasionally can step out, pop a 3. Zebo, mid-range killer, Mark. Like these are all skilled bigs, man. Like
for their era, if we're not we're not dropping these teams in a 2024 basketball game. If we're dropping these teams in a 2000 basketball game, I don't think it's terrible. I gotta be honest.
In the 2024, who'd y'all have at shooting guard?
I had Ja Morant. I ain't gonna lie.
I had Ja.
He's so good.
There was no other shooting guard I could put here. Not the Johnson shooting guard.
Look, man, I'm sorry, man. For the culture, I went with Tony Allen. I'm putting the grandfather in there, man. For the culture,
if Tony was in one of our teams and it's not mine, that is a shock. But
hey, man.
So I will say honestly, I think that Conley might be better as the off. Conley might be better as the off-ball guard, so it might be Ja at the 1 and Conley at the 2, because I feel like Ja's probably better on the ball, especially Conley's a better shooter.
That's valid.
Yeah, you can put those wherever you want, but
those are the guards.
Okay, yeah, I got Mike at the 1, obviously, but I think Ja, if he stays in Memphis his whole career, I think he'll end up being better than Conley. But for what Mike did, he's like. He's one of their franchise goats for sure.
It's gonna be hard for Jaren Jackson to make it though. As good as he is,
there's too much competition, man.
We can't put him at the 2. Like, Powell at the 3 is already a bit much.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but I guarantee I'll put them in 2K. They win some games.
Bro, that's grit and grind. Bro, that's grit and grind. That's the Grizzlies' identity to just have.
Oh yeah, and Lionel Hollins has to be a head coach, man. That's also one of the grind.
I just realized, no, your team literally has.
That spacing is awful.
You have no spacing.
That spacing is look.
Bro,
we are playing
with Powell, Randolph, and Mark.
we're running floppy for Pau Gasol.
Every time you say running floppy, that shit, bro.
Gotta get the basketball terminology back up.
Okay, let's move on to a team that, interestingly enough, also has quite a few bigs. The Utah Jazz. This should be interesting.
I thought this one was kind of easy, actually.
Stockton is unfortunately
the one. Has to be.
My 2, I thought of some guys. I wanted to have Darren Williams on here, but Pistol Pete, bro.
Yeah.
Dog.
Had to go Pistol Pete.
Oh, bro, why did I forget about him? I had Donovan Mitchell wrote down. Scratch that. Pistol Pete. Yeah.
Okay.
It was Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is a dog.
Yeah, didn't have
I
enough
think of Pistol
longevity for
Pete.
me.
I think of Pistol Pete in like as a Hawk, so didn't really. I had to like look up some Jazz guys to make sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
Garrett
looking
is
at
pulling
Garrett in
out some
chat.
crazy comments.
Hey man, my 3 actually was Adrian Dantley. This man was
me
averaging
too.
30 pretty much every year in Utah.
Had to be him.
Underrated 80s guy, late 70s, early 80s, real dog.
At the 4 is Chris Benoit.
Carl at
Unfortunately.
the 4. And my 5, I'm interested. Did y'all go Rudy? I went Rudy.
I went Rudy.
Okay.
Marquinhos a dog, but
Yeah,
Gobert
I
got
went
too many accolades, bro.
Yeah. Eaton had like I think 2 decoys.
I got Paul Millsap at the
Rudy
4.
like
I don't
doubled
know.
that.
I don't employ pedophiles, bro. Paul Millsap's my 4. Actually, scratch that. Carlos Boozer's my 4. Give me the Booze Crew.
You probably could have went with AK-47, honestly, too.
For real.
I gave him some real consideration.
There.
You can make an argument. You can low-key make an argument to slide Dantley to the 2 and put AK at the 3. Because Pistol Pete, low-key, is more of a Hawk. But
he is, but he was still good as
He was
Jazz.
nice. He was nice in Utah. I ain't even catch that. Okay, so
that's what Karl Malone got.
Do we think?
I believe so.
Oh,
I believe that one was unanimous.
Even though Gabe forgot Pistol, but well,
yeah, we'll let it slide.
Yeah, for Garrett to say that, and he loves Donovan Mitchell, that's pretty telling. Pretty telling.
Now the Hornets, they might get a bit stinky.
Okay.
It's not a lot of current guys, I'll say that much. But it's not because they have a bunch of legends.
So Kemba's at the 1, right?
Yeah.
That was the easiest pick.
Okay. My 2 was Glenn Rice.
It was not my 2.
My 2's Del Curry.
Yeah, me too.
But Glenn Rice was at least an all-star when he was on the team, though.
But Del Curry was leading them in points until Kemba took it over.
Bruh, Del Curry only led them in points because he was there for long enough, but his peak was not as high as Glenn Rice.
Yeah, but someone was in Charlotte for a long time.
Who said Glenn Rice wasn't on this team? Who said Glenn Rice isn't on my team?
Who's your 3, Reek?
Glenn Rice. God, this team is awful.
This is a really bad team, man.
Already more of a debate than
this is where I had Gerald Wallace.
I thought about Gerald Wallace, man, but
I had Wallace at the 3 as well.
That's fair. He was nice. I love Gerald. Do we have Larry Johnson at the 4?
We do.
He just gives me unk energy, bro. I don't know anything about Larry Johnson, but he just gives me crazy unk energy.
I did think about Eddie Jones too, Garrett.
Yeah.
Zoe is my 5. I think the only other comparable name is Al Jefferson, to be honest.
That's who I had. I had Al.
Cody Zeller's a shout.
Yeah.
make some play.
Hey, look, Mark Williams might already be there.
Bro. Oh, LaMelo might be more talented than any guard they've ever had.
Oh, probably.
Yes, he is.
I mean, that's also, even Alonzo over Al for me. Is like Alonzo was more talented, but like Al did his thing, and he was somehow top 10 in MVP voting for a season, which doesn't happen in Charlotte.
Zoe wasn't even there that long either, surprisingly enough. But man,
no, it wasn't.
In 5 years, Brandon Miller.
I'm glad somebody put Al. Probably 3 years. Nah. Let me stop. Yeah, maybe 5.
Gerald Wallace was good, but those teams were ass. If LaMelo can stay healthy, the Hornets could probably low-key be decent in a couple of years if they get a new front office.
Could you imagine Gerald Wallace in today's NBA?
All the Wallaces, bro, like that's just a 2000s archetype, bro. Like Ben, Sheed, Gerald, like that's 2000s basketball. If somebody comes to the league next year with the last name Wallace, bro, pray for the league.
Oh my god, bro.
Al
Kaysen?
had that Lowry Shepard
Uh,
so
Oh
true.
my gosh, bro. I'm crying. Bro, I've had some good laughs today, man. There's something that happened earlier that like nobody else will understand, but I had like a 20-minute laugh on it, bro. It was hilarious. Oh my
It's the
god.
vibes we want, man.
The Wizards.
Yeah,
Why do we pick all these bad teams?
Because they're hilarious. That's exactly why I picked them.
Yeah, bro. I got Jordan Poole as my I got Kyle Kuzma at the 4.
Oh my god.
Nah, we need the Polish hammer out here. Come on now.
John
You know
Wall
what's
got
crazy?
so much money.
We're top might actually be like top 3 centers in team.
No.
No way. They've had a few decent bigs.
Okay. Point guard. Who'd you have at the 1, bro?
I
Teach
had
me how to
John.
Dougie, bro.
Huh?
Teach me how to Dougie.
Mr. John Wall.
Okay. I had John Wall too. My 2, I had Gilbert Arenas. I had Abachi.
Yeah, he needs to
Beal.
chill. Some of Arenas' Twitter takes are ass, but
Oh, I can't stand him off the court, but he was a hell of a basketball player.
Nah,
he's a shooter.
He was omitted on mine. I had Bradley.
Oh, you had Bill. I had Bill at the 3.
Bruh. Wait till
I
y'all
was
know
not going that
3?
generous.
who I had at the 3 was Anton Jameson.
I thought you was gonna say Otto Porter.
I thought so too. Money
Kelly
gotta think it's Paul Pierce too.
Kelly Oubre. Hey,
Trevor
Devin, did you call bank?
Oh my god!
I have
bro.
Gus Johnson.
You have who?
Gus Johnson.
At the
I'm gonna
3?
be honest. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Nah, Anton Jameson got that on
Yeah,
lock.
I thought about Anton, but I went Gus.
I thought about Twan
I did.
too.
I did
Oh my
consider
God.
Anton though.
The front court was. I had Elvin Hayes at the 4.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
I did
The
not
front
have
court
Kyle
was easy.
Kuzma.
And then
Hayes and
Wes.
Was at the 5. Yeah.
Oh
But
my God.
Wes Unseld won MVP as like a rookie, bro. People are
I'm
not doing
crying,
this.
bro.
Like Caitlin Clark gonna be the first rookie to win MVP next year since like Wes Unseld.
I'm crying, bro.
And this is why I picked these teams because they
my
are
God.
tragic. There's no fun in naming 5 Hall of
That's
Fame
true.
locks or Hall of Fame eligible or guaranteed guys.
Bro,
We're gonna
nobody
go here and
else.
talk about
There's
Al Jefferson and Del Curry.
nobody else has all-time starting 5 this bad, bro.
Gabe was not feeling Dale Curry.
Nah.
Oh my God.
Oh
He said-
man.
Cartier Warren at the 3. Yeah, Beal had a really good stretch though. I didn't want to leave him off, and Gilbert was too good for me to
Bro.
leave.
That
him
is valid. That is
Beal
valid.
was basically just Jerry Stackhouse again, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
but at least Bill was on the same team. Jerry Stackhouse was on like 5 different teams, averaging 30 points.
Well, Bradley Beal might as well not be on the team. Now, bro, I feel like Bradley Beal's not played more than like 50 games this season since like 2018.
It's been a minute.
He like, bro, last time he played a full
This is his
season,
first
John Wall
All-NBA
was
season. Oh my God, bro. I'm crying, bro.
That is your 3-point weekly edition of all time franchise teams.
Y'all think we got enough time for trivia?
They're not long. We can get it done in 10 to 15 minutes.
Hey, I'm cool doing trivia, bro.
Okay.
Oh my God.
We want to team up again, or do we want some comp this week?
It's up to Gabe.
We can
Just
do a little
before you
team
make a decision, for the record, it is all going to be decided between players and who has more points for a specific team throughout their career.
Let's team up.
Let's team up. That was fun last week selling each other's bag.
bro.
Team up it
Walk
is.
with me.
Okay. You better walk with Gabe for the first one because it is a Toronto Raptors question.
Oh, Jesus.
Who has more career points for the Toronto Raptors? Jose Calderon or Jonas Valanciunas?
Shit.
Bro,
Good.
Valanciunas was really out here for like 8 years.
Was Val averaging like really big numbers for most of his Raptors tenure though? I feel like he was around like
I feel he was like a 13 points per game type guy.
yeah.
I would go Val because he is
'Cause
there
Jose
for so long.
Jose was there from like 06 till like 2012.
Jose was efficient, but like, bro, Valanciunas.
Yeah, Jose didn't really score that much though, for real. Like he was more like a 10 to 12-ish kind of guy. I feel like Val was consistently around 13 once he started playing a lot.
I'm with Val.
Okay, I'm cool with Val too.
Okay, JV is locked in. He had 5,524 points in his Raptors career. Jose had 5,237, so JV is correct.
Okay.
You said Valanciunas only had 5,000 points as a Raptor. That's kind of crazy.
5,524, yeah.
What, he was there for like
Over like
6
8 seasons.
Oh, he's there now. Got
He
drafted.
got drafted in 2011.
Yeah,
Oh,
first year he
shit.
stayed overseas, though, so he was a year late.
Okay, so 12 was
He stayed in Lithuania for a year.
Okay.
All right,
Man,
next
Val.
one. You're probably walking with Reek. We're going to Boston.
Okay.
Jeff Green or Brandon Bass?
Oh, those shoot. Okay.
I'm gonna just say Brandon Bass and let you cook, but I would just lock in Brandon Bass immediately.
Bass was there for like his first season was 2011, 2012. His last season was I think 13-14. So he was there 4 seasons. Jeff like 20 something games in 2010-11, had heart surgery in 12. Averaged like 12 points in 2012-13. 16 and 13-14, then I think he was off the team the next year.
I hope Gary's just guessing in chat and not spoiling, because I'm so set on saying Brandon Bass.
Jeff missed a whole season though. And Bass was around like 8-9 points a game. All middies. Maybe a dunk.
All middies.
But Jeff's peak, he was averaging 16 for a full season.
But that's why, bro. I'm so on Brandon Bass.
I want to say Jeff, bro. I want to say
Right.
Jeff.
Okay.
Let's go, Jeff.
Okay. All right.
All right, he's walking with the Celtic fan. I will admit this is a close one. It is within 40 points.
Oh, shit.
Brandon Bass is at 3,216. Jeff Green is at 3,252. That's correct.
Let's go, Reek.
Very good pull. Okay, back to the current day with the Memphis Grizzlies. Who has more career points, John Morant or Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Jaren Jackson Jr.
Slow down, partner. We got to factor in some things.
No, I think
A lot of factors with both of these boys.
I feel like I saw this recently that Jaren has more career points. I know he has more win shares because when I was making the starting five, it has like on basketball right now.
What does win shares have to do with points?
Of course, he has more win shares. He gets a billion blocks.
Nah, because he just be playing. He just be playing more, bro. I'm telling you. Walk with me, bro. It's Jaren. He was there first. John Morant
was averaging 17 from day one, bro. Jaren was not averaging 17 from day one. He's averaging like a lot less than that.
But listen,
like,
Jaren did have some injury concerns early on, but bro, John never plays.
John misses time too, for sure. He definitely does.
I'm telling you, bro. This whole season, like Jaws literally played like 5 games this year.
9, and he was averaging 25. That's about 200 points.
I think Jaren was averaging like 20 this year, though.
Yeah,
we just
you
talked
got
about
quizzed
this
that last week.
He's
Yeah,
like 22.
so-
He said like 22. All
That's
right.
what I'm saying,
Okay.
bro.
Okay. Let's go, Jaren. Let's go, Jaren.
Welcome me, Reek, bro. Lock in
Okay.
Jaren
All
Jackson.
right, we're walking with Gabe for Jaren. He has 5,570 career points for the Grizzlies.
More than
Jaws
that.
at 5,780.
No!
By the end of the year, you will be correct. Currently, unfortunately, you are not.
You make me sick, Gabe.
Bro, he's really gonna pass him in like 3 weeks, bro. Stop.
Well, he's not passing now.
Knock
We got
on wood,
the
he
answer
doesn't get
wrong.
injured.
Yes.
Bro, nah, listen, hey, viewer in the comments watching 2 months from now, tell Devin that he's wrong in the comment section below.
Nobody's gonna remember that, bro. Gabe's about to be watching his points every day just to bring it up on the podcast.
If there's a Rockets fan from Run the NBA who is on here, they will remind me. Trust me, they will remind me. Although they've been much quieter the last few weeks, which is more than fine by me. Anyways,
yeah.
moving on to the Portland Trailblazers. Who has more career points for them specifically between Zach Randolph and Brandon Roy?
I don't even know how long Zebo played there, man.
Dang, lockdown defense by the Lakers.
Bro didn't even hear the question.
Nah, bro, it's Zach Randolph or Brandon Roy.
Okay.
Stop playing with me.
B. Roy had like 4 good years before injuries really started hitting him. Zebo.
Well, I chose the
I don't
longevity
even.
player last time and I was wrong. So I feel like this time if I choose the longevity player again and stay the course,
Chat split too. B. Roy, he was. I think his career high was like 23 a game, or 22 or 23. It was one or the other. He was a multiple-time All-Star. I think he averaged 21 his first All-Star appearance, 22 point something his All-NBA season. I don't know what Zebo was like really doing in Portland stat-wise, to be honest.
They were decent. I want to stay the course with being Mr. Longevity and go Zebo just for my own consistency. Because if I switch up to the better scorer but guy who's out all the time and I'm wrong again, I would just look silly.
All right, I'm going to walk with you one more time. And if you fuck this up, bro, we're done.
Devin hates longevity, bro, if it's not Zach Randolph.
Gabe's rep is on the line here. We'll see if Zach does hold it down for him. He had 6,202 points with the Trailblazers. Brandon Roy had 6,107. Gabe, you are safe. You can still lead Reek down the path. You are correct.
Man.
That's crazy. Roy had like 4 healthy seasons. It was right there.
I'm 2 for 3 with an asterisk on walking with me.
What's the asterisk?
Jerry was about to pass job, bro.
Bro's projecting on current point total, bro. This is insane, man.
Hey, bro, I'm
God.
coping. I'm coping hard.
Okay.
Okay, to the next one. Back to the Eastern
We're
Conference.
4 for 5, and I'm still coping.
You've done 4, but you're close.
3 for 4.
3 for 4. You're on pace. Hopefully, you're 4 for 5 with the Indiana Pacers between Paul George and Danny Granger.
Bro, I really feel like Danny Granger was really like that guy for like 2 seconds.
He had like 3 years averaging 20 plus.
But Paul George
He never he did actually, yeah. His like last season or two, he averaged like 20 plus. Healthy seasons. Chat saying Granger. Do we go with Chat?
Well,
Danny got drafted. He was drafted, I think, 05, I think. He was in
I'll
Indy for a minute.
low key. I'll walk with chat.
Okay, let's go Granger.
We are just continuing to walk with whoever is tuning into the stream tonight, and we'd love to see it. And the chat is very correct. This was by far the most wide margin of the bunch
chat.
of trivia tonight. Danny Granger was at 9,571. Paul George at 8,090.
Granger was a dog.
Granger was a dog pre-injury. Very, very good
Chad.
player.
Let's go, Chad. Let's go.
This is listed as the Washington Wizards, but there's no way this was supposed to be the Washington Wizards. This is supposed to be the Houston Rockets. The two players we are deciding between is Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon.
I'm thinking Gordon off rip.
Eric Gordon was there for so long doing nothing, bro. Eric Gordon
Anderson was only
there,
playing
bro.
for like 2 seasons for real.
Bro, Eric
He's out the
Gordon
rotation.
Eric Gordon literally was there until this season.
Oh, sorry. This actually wasn't. I'm forgetting which team this
Pelicans.
was now. This was supposed to be for the Pelicans. Yes.
Ooh, that makes it a little because EG was hurt a lot in New Orleans.
Bro, I was gonna say the Rockets that was a freebie.
Yeah, that was a layup.
Yeah. I had myself confused on that typo. This is indeed supposed to be in good old New Orleans.
I ain't gonna lie, Gabe. I'm thinking Ryan Anderson for real.
Me too. I am because Eric Gordon. Yeah, those teams are never able to hit potential. Those AD teams because injuries.
I feel like EG missed a lot of time. Anderson, I'm trying to think of his numbers back. He averaged around 21 year, but I don't know if it was in New Orleans. It might have been Orlando still, but I'm still thinking Ryan Anderson because Eric Gordon missed so much time.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet to go with Big Ryan.
Let's go with the Cal Berkeley guy, man.
The old Ryan got his big 72 mil bag from the Rockets thanks to his play in New Orleans. Had 3,702 points with them. Eric Gordon had 3,390.
Let's go.
Ryan Anderson is indeed correct.
Okay. Yeah, EG missed so much time in New Orleans.
He did. For the next one, we are staying in New Orleans with two stars who had some very short tenures in town, and that is DeMarcus Cousins and Julius Randle.
I want to say Randall. Because he had that stretch where he was putting up triple doubles and shit that year. AD was sitting out all the time because he was about to request that trade.
It wasn't.
Let's
do some math. Let's do some math real quick, right? Just games played, man. Boogie got traded end of 2016 season after All-Star. Usually post All-Star, maybe 25 to 28 games. That's usually.
I thought that was 17, 18, I think.
I thought it was maybe 16, 17 then. Yeah, it was 16, 17 because it was Buddy's rookie year. He was 16 draft. He was in that trade.
It was the year the All-Star was in New Orleans.
It was the end of the 17 season is when he got traded. Deadline.
It was trade deadline because it was All-Star break and they were just you might as well not pack your bag.
Yeah.
You just got
16, 17. 16. Okay, so anyways, back half of that season, we'll assume he played 25 games or so, right? He got hurt in January the following year. So that's 2 months of basketball. Or we saying that's 35 games? Maybe. That's 60 games played. Even though his numbers were big, that's 60 games. Randall played a full season. He was averaging he was up there. He was averaging around 20. Yeah, he was 19, 20 or something like that.
I really think it was Randall because AD missed a lot of time that year, so there was a lot of shots open.
It's close. It's probably close though, because Boogie was probably averaging 25 plus. He had some monster games too.
I'm pretty sure he was catching passes from Rondo too. The playmaking was there.
Drew. He had some 40, 20 games.
It had to be 17, 18 because 16, 17 Rondo was on Chicago.
Yeah, but he got traded at the deadline in 16, 17.
Rondo?
Traded at Boogie. So he played post All-Star in New Orleans. and then he got hurt 17-18 in like January. Because that was the year they made the playoffs, but Boogie was hurt. So he technically didn't play a playoff game that year. So his playoff drought was still active. So he never played a full season there, is what I'm saying.
Why did I think he was there for not even that long? That's crazy.
I'm still kind of thinking it might be Boogie, though, I'm going to be honest.
I'm thinking Randall, but I'll walk with you.
Chat saying Boogie.
I'll walk with Boogie.
Okay, let's go Boogie.
Chat is indeed saying Boogie, but it is close per Garrett, and you're not wrong. These guys are only separated by less than 70 points. Boogie is at 1,624. Julius Randle is at 1,565. Boogie is a very good pull.
Okay.
Good pull,
I'll
Chad.
walk.
That was a tough one.
That was a very tough one. That was a
That was a-
very good pull. Next, we are going to the Knicks for two players between two very different eras, RJ Barrett and Bernard King.
Oh, I was just looking at King's stats earlier because I was contemplating putting him on an all-time list.
RJ was about 16 to 18 for what, 5 seasons? 4
I think
seasons?
he averaged 20. He averaged
4 and a
21 year
half?
too.
So he's about 16 to 20. So we'll say he averaged like 18 on average for like 5 years.
King maybe played like 5-6 seasons, I think, as a Knick. He was putting up some 20. He was putting up some pretty big numbers, though.
Was he putting up more than 18 a game during that stretch? Because if so, I think he has it.
I would assume he was. I'm not the biggest Bernard King historian, but I would think so.
Then
Where's Garrett? Where's Garrett? Yeah, there's Garrett. He said it's Bernard King.
Neil said it's too easy that it's King.
He said it was RJ.
I guess we're going with Bernard King. It just feels right. Like if he's really that guy, he got to get averaging more than 18. RJ's like 18 points per game.
I'm pretty sure he's averaging more than 18. I'm like pretty sure he probably.
Let's lock in Bernard.
Let's go with BK, man.
Bernard had 5,454 points for the Knicks.
Oh my god!
Post-injury,
RJ
Bernard was definitely not as good, despite the fact he was elite for a few years. But he still beat RJ, who's at 5,374.
That was close.
It was tight, but you got him. We were really close to Garrett throwing up.
Bernard King, after the knee injury, his first year after the knee injury, he was still putting up. Oh, he was only there for 1 year after the knee injury. He only played.
Yeah.
After the injury, he only played 6 games in New York. Then he went right to Washington.
Yeah.
But he was still good. He had a year in Washington where he averaged 28 points.
Low-key an all-time wizard, man.
Bro, that was he was age 34, averaging 28 points per game. That's kind of crazy.
Injuries kind of crazy. Yeah, doing that post-injury is insane.
Definitely, especially back in that day. All right, we got 2 to finish it off. We still got a chance for a 9 out of 10 run. The last 2 are going to be in Orlando. The first one is the only one on the list that has 3 players to choose between. You have Franz Wagner, JJ Redick, and Terrence Ross.
I got the craziest urge to go with T. Ross, bro.
Me too.
That's Raptor bias, bro.
I'll be honest. For some reason, like T. Ross seems more of a Magic than a Raptor, bro. He was there for so long.
He was traded for Serge in like 2017, bro.
It seems like he was there for like 10 years, bro.
Bro, he was there. He was there from like 2017 to like 2023, bro. Like he was there.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's JJ.
Me neither.
It's either Franz or T. Ross.
Well, Doc Rivers saved his career, so he wasn't doing nothing in Orlando.
Yeah, it's trash. Even though his last year he was averaging like 14 or 15 a game or something like that before he got traded.
I feel like T. Ross was low-key given a good, 16 in Orlando.
I feel like he had some big years there off that bench.
He was given,
Franz
16.
Franz been good since day one.
Bro, but Franz has been there for, 3 seasons.
He's probably around, at least 4,000 points, I would say.
I think it's T. Ross because Franz, he just ain't been there long enough. Ross was there for so long, averaging not that much less than what Franz averages.
Potentially.
JJ, I feel like was probably averaging. I feel like JJ might have been there a little longer, but he was averaging
any big years.
He was averaging probably single digits a lot of years.
I'm cool going T. Ross. Okay, let's go.
All right, T. Ross comes in at 4,427 points for the Magic. JJ, as you guys suspected, was last at 3,662. Franz was at 3,720.
T. Ross is there forever, bro.
Franz about to get to 4,000 though.
The only one we got wrong was John Jaren. I'm sick.
John Jaren. You still got one more, though. You still got
one more.
Staying in Orlando. Tobias Harris, and the guy from his era in terms of draft picks, Victor Oladipo.
In Orlando?
In Orlando.
Dude, I really feel like Tobias was not there very long at all.
What, he got to Detroit in 16, 17, I think?
No, he was in Detroit in 2015, 16 at the early.
Was he? Was that the playoff thing?
I'm kind of this. I feel like this is half cheating, but it's just because I was looking at his playoff stats earlier. When you were talking about him as the X factor, and when they made the playoffs in 15, 16, he was on that squad.
Okay. So he was in the JJ trade, so he got traded there 12, 13. So he played less than half a season there, and then 13, 14, 14, 15, or his only full seasons there. And Oladipo.
He was there from 13 to 16 because he was drafted in 2013 and then he got traded for Surge. No,
I feel like Vic was. Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah.
He went to OKC. I know that.
Yeah, he was in the Surge trade. I feel like Vic was pretty okay in Orlando.
He wasn't great.
Points per game was, but Tobias Harris is also has more points than Kawhi Leonard all time.
And Fat Oladipo or Young Tobias?
The 12 that nobody remembers in Orlando. This is tough.
In Orlando? That's crazy. Right after Dwight Howard left? No way.
I honestly don't know if he did. I'm just talking. He really wears either 12 or 34. That's such a big disparity in numbers, bro.
Man, that just don't go upwards.
Just don't.
Next, he's gonna wear 56.
Didn't Oladipo struggle with injury early on?
No, he's just fat, out of shape.
He was just fat Oladipo. Man.
I don't think he really missed big time until
if he didn't miss much time, I think he's got to get the nod over Tobias.
But Tobias has just always been a consistently just good scorer, man. But Vic might have the longevity over him in Orlando by half a season. Or not. He doesn't even have that. Because they were on new teams. They got to new situations. No, he does have it because he got traded 16, 17 going into that season. Let's go Vic, man. I'm cool going Vic.
Give me Oladipo is one of my guys, but I wanted his jersey so bad in Indiana. So
that's my dude, man. Give me Vic.
Victor Oladipo was locked in. He had 3,551 points for the Magic. Tobias had 3,193.
Come on.
We just cooked, man.
Very good showing today. 9 out of 10 from Reek, Gabe, and contributions from the chat.
Hold on.
Very well done.
T. Ross and Bernard King were the pools of the century.
My AirPods just died. I can't hear y'all. Hold on.
That is when you know we are approaching the end of the stream. That's when you know.
This stream we've had streams in the past go 6 hours, go till 3 in the morning. So
this is very true.
This is bad.
Considering I now work at 8 a.m., that rules are no longer happening during the week.
Oh my god, yeah. I'm happy I'm off tomorrow because, bro, if I had to go to work after a stream, whew.
I gotta go on tomorrow.
Yeah, it's part of that 9 to 5, or I suppose I'm 8 to 5 Monday to Friday life. But hey, I ain't swamped in engineering work for a bit. So I'll take it.
Yeah, I should have walked with Gabe on that one, man. That's
my Jaron standard is really what did us in. I gotta be honest.
I peeped how you started muting yourself when you weren't talking.
Because the chair, it needed to be done.
Bro, when I be editing TikToks, I'm like, damn, that chair is loud as hell.
It's gonna be part of the aesthetic.
I ain't gonna lie, it's low-key broken. It's low-key broken, but that's okay.
It'd be like that.
Yeah, it'd be like that sometime. We're gonna record in person sometime, and we're just gonna have to get Gabe the most clickety-clacky keyboard and these squeaky chair.
How you miss the keyboard, bro? The keyboard right here, man.
It would be so funny because like either I would be talking or Devin would be talking, and Gabe just typing away.
Bro, the pod's designated secretary.
Yeah, it's always basketball reference, bro. Because, bro, somebody be like, "Oh yeah, look at what I don't even know who's the player we be talking about all the time. Look at what this guy's averaging," and then I'm like, "Oh, we gotta go look at his stats. Look real quick."
I'll be on B-ball reference way too much these days, man.
For real though.
Shout out to Deuce McBride. He's been playing good. That's my one random shout out.
Ochai Agbaji's getting mine.
Okay.
He's been hooping since post All-Star break, although he didn't do much tonight. But he's playing good. Well. He's been playing well.
I'm so confused
by Luka tonight, but like it's Luka, so
it's fucking Luka. I'm surprised why he was so bad this year in Utah.
Yeah, just tough to get a consistent role. They had so many dudes over there that were getting time over him, so he's been a regular rotation guy ever since he's been in Toronto now, so it'll be good for him.
Are y'all scared the Raptors are going to lose their pick this year because it's top 6 protected?
I hope we lose our pick.
Oh, yeah. Does it convey like differently next year in protections or something?
It's top 6 protected regardless, but like it's top 6 protected next year and the year after still. So like we're going to lose it eventually. It's just get it over with in a weaker draft, I suppose. We already got picks in this draft anyways.
I want to shout out an underappreciated talent who really popped off tonight. LeBron James. Big, huge win over the Clippers. 34-8-6. Hashtag
beat the Clippers.
Hashtag the kid from Akron.
Hashtag keep my son's name out your mouth.
Hashtag James.
No farewell.
Hashtag mock drafts don't matter.
Hey man, I love Bron, but he loves trying to control that narrative, man. Like, brother, a year ago you were saying Bronny is better than some cats in the NBA.
Yeah, you can't have that one both ways.
La mock draft is crazy, bro.
Also, just so we're all aware, the Kings are officially contenders because Jamal Murray dropped 32 tonight on 13 of 15 shooting.
They meet the list. They meet the criteria.
They do.
There's a lot of teams. I think the Bucks are contenders. Jamal Murray torched Boston. I don't think he torched OKC. I think he had a bad game against them. So, fraud watch, maybe.
I think so.
When did this narrative start? Jamal Murray only plays good against contenders?
Yeah, he's a good team merchant, man. He only hoops against good teams.
And Sabonis against a good team, 13, 10, and 7, 5 of 14 from the field.
It's on brand.
Expected net of basketball. X Factor, Keegan Murray, 21 points.
Yeah, Keegan Murray's their best player.
Keegan
bro,
Murray.
Bro. These
Chris Duarte took 14 shots.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, that man's name.
About these X Factors.
That man's name is Westbrook.
What?
Talking about Carrot, he said Westbrook. That man's name is Westbrook. God.
Harrison.
I should have said Tim Hardaway Jr. is the X factor for the Mavs. I'm surprised nobody said it.
Bro.
He might give him enough runs if he rules them all safe.
Devin, you gotta close out the pod, bro.
We dropping 12-4-1 against the Rockets.
It might be that time, man.
I'm like 9 shot attempts.
Tim Hardaway, he looks
a bad team. He's like, nah, I'm cool.
Why everybody hoop against the Raptors, bro?
Bro, somebody tweeted something about Tim Hardaway Jr. the other day, and I was crying for like 10 minutes, bro. Oh my god.
You just be a walking meme, man.
Mavs fans hate him. Like, bro,
don't blame
Michael Porter Jr. gets flack for not swinging the rock. Bro, Tim ain't no better.
Oh, if anything, he's worse.
Did Tim Hardaway not literally like leave and come back?
Bro, he's done that on like 6 different teams.
Oh wait, no, he left and came back to New York.
He ain't doing it in Dallas too.
No, bro, I swear I thought he did. No, bro, he's been in Dallas since 2018. He's been in Dallas.
He's only been on what, 3 teams?
Ever.
Knicks, Hawks, and Mavs.
Yes.
That sounds
Dude, he was on the Hawks with like fucking like Dwight Howard.
Well, buddy, he'll be on a new team next year. I'll tell you that much. Maybe, I don't know for real.
You think Buddy Hield's leaving Philly right away?
Huh?
You think Buddy Hield's leaving Philly right away?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Reggie Bullock that only gets garbage time minutes.
Man with the Houston and just, nothing.
He's just vibing, man. He's there for the clubs.
He's like, oh, mid-level exception? Oh, okay.
Shit, I don't know if I was going to get this anywhere else. Okay. That is 3-point weekly lore right there, man.
The loud ass clank. Bro,
you know what's funny? I was watching that clip recently. I think that was like late in the game too.
I'm pretty sure it was.
He was calling the ref safe. All you see is just like
Serge throwing up stones at the rim. Spike Lee standing courtside. That's the craziest clip ever, just for so many reasons, bro.
So bizarre.
You know, like the Taco Bell sound, bro. That's how he missed, bro. Just
oh my god, bro.
Oh man.
God.
Is that the worst miss of all time? What is the worst miss of all time?
No. Last night, this man Mo Bamba. He shot a jump hook in the middle of the lane. Hit straight backboard. It wasn't even close, bro. It was straight glass on the right side.
That is Mo Bamba's career encapsulated in one play. Oh.
I was like, bro, no way he did that, bro. Oh my god.
Oh,
I really thought Mo Bamba was about to be it, bro. I can't believe he
Yeah,
nah. He was not him.
Oh my god.
Not him.
Yes, bro, the T-pose is comedy, man.
T-pose is great.
Oh my god, Mo Bamba, bro.
Well,
I'm gonna find that clip, man. Oh my god, I was crying.
Oh man, in the interest of this thing not going another 2 hours,
Please.
I think we're gonna call it. But the vibes have been great. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button and do subscribe for weekly vibes that have been as immaculate as tonight, with some amount of hoop talk that somehow gets intertwined in between. So we appreciate your continued support. and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.